After my husband's white moonlight got married, he jumped off a building. Before jumping, he made a will, leaving all his money to the unborn child in his white moonlight's womb. That disgusting illegitimate child, even I, the legitimate wife, missed out on all the company's shares, became a worker toiling for the unattainable love, reborn into this life. Looking at the man before me, a trace of disgust flashed in my eyes. Like playing the devoted man, huh? Then you can go die together with your white moonlight. 1. When I received the news that I was about to become a wage slave, I was so shocked I nearly fainted in the cafe. My husband's white moonlight, my arch-rival Jiang, sat across from me with a pregnant belly, smiling innocently. Sister, blame it on our brother for loving me and the child too much. That's why he left the inheritance to me. After all, what father would want his own son to suffer? Isn't that right? Staring at the arrogant woman before me, I clenched my fists tightly, the sharp nails dug into my flesh, the pain excruciating. My husband committed suicide by jumping off a building some time ago. Just when I thought I was about to inherit all his property and reach the peak of my life, a lawyer showed up at my house with my husband's will, followed by his unattainable love. In the will, all of my husband's shares were unconditionally given to the child in Jiang Yu's womb, his illegitimate child. As for me, I've gone from being the boss's wife to just another employee. How ironic that after all these years of hard work, I end up working for the mistress and her illegitimate child. Watching Jiang Yu continue to show off in front of me, the light in my eyes gradually dimmed. Then with a smile, I reached into my bag under the table and pulled out my butterfly knife for self-defense. Stabbed straight into the left eye of the woman opposite. Blood gushed out. Accompanied by screams from the surrounding people, I stepped onto the table and slashed Jiang Yu's throat with another knife, still thinking of using the family fortune I'd worked so hard to build all these years to raise your illegitimate child. In your dreams, go to hell with that bastard man of yours. When I opened my eyes again, I thought I was in prison, but the pink curtains told me otherwise. My mother pushed the door open and stood by my bed with a calm expression. Yu Qing. Let me ask you one more time, are you really going to marry that penniless Gu Qinghuai? That question jolted me fully awake. I had been reborn. In my past life, I nodded without hesitation. Just because he was my first love in high school, I married into the Gu family with a maiden's longing and an exorbitant dowry. In this life, I threw myself onto the bed, kneeling and wailing, no, 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 I won't marry. I refused to wed a penniless man. As soon as the words fell, I saw my mother heave a sigh of relief. Then she patted my shoulder and said with a smile, that's my daughter. Seeing you so bewitched recently, I thought you were possessed by a ghost. After saying this, my mother's expression immediately turned serious. The Gu family is waiting in the living room right now. Since you don't want to marry Gu Qinghuai, I'll go make it clear. After saying that, she was about to get up and leave, but I grabbed her arm. A cold sneer flashed through my eyes. In my past life, Gu Qinghuai's betrayal was etched deeply in my memory. Having been reborn, how could I let him off so easily? A smile spread across my face. Mom, this trouble was caused by me. I'll handle it myself. I'll talk to Uncle Gu about it. 2. In my past life, I was determined to marry Gu Qinghuai. The Gu family had fallen into decline in the capital, and upon hearing this, they acted as if they had stumbled upon a great bargain, immediately bringing Gu Qinghuai to propose marriage. At that time, Jiang Yu was still the adopted daughter of the Gu family and stubbornly followed them here. Gu Qinghuai, in front of his beloved, reluctantly accepted me. Thinking back now, he must have hated me to death. I picked a black cheongsam from the wardrobe, embroidered with several dark golden lotus flowers in gold thread. It exuded an air of dignified elegance. As my mother watched me in the mirror putting on earrings and fixing my hair, instantly transforming from a college girl to a wealthy heiress, she nodded in satisfaction. My mother and I came to the living room. From afar, I could see Gu's father rubbing his hands together, speaking to my father with a fawning expression. But my father sat stiffly on the chair with a stern face. Seeing me arrive, both Gu Qinghuai and Jiang Yu were somewhat stunned. The Gu family had fallen into decline, with the entire household crammed into a mere dozen square meter flat in the capital. For over a decade, Mr. Gu clung to his delusion of making a comeback, squandering what little remained of their savings. Thus, both Gu Qinghuai and Jiang Yu now dressed simply, completely unlike me. I glanced at Jiang Yu's face, not missing the unmistakable envy in her eyes. Seeing me arrive, Father Gu immediately greeted warmly, Youqing's here. Come sit down quickly. Look at Youqing's noble demeanor. It's clear she and Qinghuai are a match made in heaven. I smiled and touched the imperial green oval cabochon ring on my middle finger. Glancing at Gu Qinghuai across from me, his blue shirt faded from washing, I remained non-committal. Just as Father Gu was about to probe my father about my dowry, I raised my hand to interrupt him. Uncle, I haven't agreed to marry Gu Qinghua yet. Don't be so quick to calculate my dowry. The duck hasn't even reached your mouth. And you're already planning to suck the marrow from its bones. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw the Gu family's expressions darken in unison. Gu Qinghuai's voice turned stern. Lin Yuqing, how dare you speak to my father like that? Apologize now. I glanced at him disdainfully and sneered. What kind of thing are you, daring to order me around? I'm the eldest daughter of the wealthy Lin family, your education sponsor. Even if I didn't give you life, I raised you. And now you're demanding an apology from me. I've never seen a shameless man like you who acts tough while living off others. Such audacity. After speaking, I noticed my father sitting beside me immediately brighten up, his gaze towards me filling with appreciation. I couldn't help but laugh. My father was upright and taciturn, so now that I'd voiced his inner thoughts, he naturally felt relieved. The Gu family was momentarily stunned to see their formerly obedient me acting so shrewish, seizing the advantage. I pointed at Gu Qinghuai's nose and scolded, if I hadn't funded you back then, you'd have dropped out and be selling pancakes on the street by now. Where would you get the money to start a business? It's an honor that I took a liking to you, and you dare speak to me like this. After saying that, I gave a meaningful glance at Jiangyu standing beside Gu Qinghuai, implying, or is it that your heart belongs to someone else, and I'm playing the villain who separates lovers? Jiangyu's lips instantly turned pale upon hearing my words. Some time ago, Father Gu was even willing to marry her off to a wealthy merchant in his 50s for bride price, just to secure a new loan and make a comeback. It was Gu Qinghuai who stepped forward, claiming he could marry the eldest daughter of the Lin family, which finally made Father Gu spare Jiangyu. I'll never forget how Jiangyu touched her pregnant belly in our past life and smiled at me, saying, do you know what my brother told me back then? On the night of your wedding, my brother held me and told me to endure a little longer, that once he becomes powerful enough, we can be together openly. When Gu Qinghuai heard what I said, he immediately reacted as if struck by a guilty conscience, saying sharply, Lin Yuqing, don't go too far, Jiangyu and I are just siblings. As the words fell, a faint smile curled at the corners of my lips. This was a confession without prompting. Having navigated the business world for years, my father had long honed a pair of piercing, discerning eyes. His gaze swept over Gu Qinghuai and Jiangyu, and in an instant, he grasped the gist of the matter, followed swiftly by a surge of anger. Father sneered as he turned his gaze toward Gu's father. The ancients always said to govern the state, one must first regulate the family. Old Gu, if you can't even keep your own household in order, no wonder your business ventures fail. After speaking, the father coldly signaled to the servant behind him, with a family like this, you still dare dream of marrying my daughter? Preposterous. Attendants, escort this guest out. 3. Just like that, the entire Gu family was thrown out by us. Gu Qinghuai looked particularly disheveled, standing awkwardly outside the Lin family's villa. Raising his head to glare at me watching the spectacle from the balcony, without hesitation, I flipped him the bird. Shortly after, the property security guards dragged Gu Qinghuai away. In my past life, everyone around me doubted the marriage arrangement between me and Gu Qinghuai, saying we were doomed to fail. Only one person consistently tried to bring me and Gu Qinghuai together from start to finish. That was one of my friends, Song Yu, the illegitimate daughter of the Song family. But when Jiangyu came to seize my assets, Song Yu vanished into thin air like steam. Later, I discovered she had taken a large sum of money and emigrated abroad. Looking back now, I suspect the Gu family had bribed people around me to ensure I married into the Gu family safely. They truly went to great lengths. The night I rejected Gu Qinghuai, Song Yu texted me asking why I broke up with him. Her tone wasn't pleasant, and there was even a hint of accusation between the lines. Gu Qinghuai is handsome and driven. He's already a great match. You're not getting any younger this year, and it's already good that someone wants you. How dare you still be picky? After saying that, she sent several contemptuous emojis in a row, then added, if you reject Gu Qinghuai, let's just cut ties. I stared at my phone screen in slight surprise, a flicker of doubt crossing my mind. My past self must have been incredibly patient not to slap this illegitimate daughter who dared speak to me like that. Then I immediately understood. Previously, I was a spoiled young lady with no temper, doted on by my parents and untouched by hardships. It wasn't until after marriage when I was forced to start a business with Gu Qinghuai that I toughened up and became the fiery President Lin. Naturally, my state of mind is different now, watching Song Yu still spouting nonsense on the screen. I moved my fingers, blocked her decisively without hesitation, thought the matter would come to an end. Who would have thought that blind-eyed Song Yu would, at Saturday's cocktail party, publicly confront me about why I blocked her? At that moment, I was holding a wine glass and speaking with their family's eldest daughter. The Song family's eldest daughter frowned upon hearing Song Yu speak. The Song family is currently eager to collaborate with the Lin family. Even she herself has to force a smile when speaking to me. What on earth is this illegitimate child doing now? The crowd of onlookers grew larger as the Song family's eldest daughter scolded. What place do you have to speak in such a setting? Moreover, if someone blocked you, there must be a reason. Have you ever reflected on your own behavior? Before the illegitimate daughter could retort, I cut in. Speaking of which, I'd like to ask Miss Song, your family's upbringing can't be that poor. So how did you raise such an outrageous girl? She actually expected me, a young lady from a prominent family, to marry someone like Gu Qinghuai, a down-and-out nobody. Even my marriage arrangements are subject to my parents' approval. Since when did Miss Song become so meddlesome? When she saw me arguing with Gu Qinghuai, she even threatened to cut ties with me unless we reconciled. As I finished, the crowd erupted in mocking laughter, all ridiculing the illegitimate daughter for overestimating her importance. The Song family's eldest daughter flushed red and then paled with anger. Then she shot a glance at her assistant behind her. The assistant stepped forward and slapped Song Yu twice across the face. The eldest Miss Song smiled apologetically at me, saying, "It's entirely due to the Song family's lax discipline that this farce occurred. Rest assured, Miss Lin, we'll take her back and give her a proper talking to." I looked at the disheveled Song Yu before me, her cheeks swollen high, recalling her glorious and untouchable demeanor in her previous life. I nodded in satisfaction. Song Yu was dragged by the servants and thrown into the car, to be sent back to the Song family after the banquet concluded. Meanwhile, I proceeded to discuss business with the eldest Miss Song. Although the current head of the Song family hasn't achieved any major accomplishments, they've done quite well in maintaining the family's legacy. There's still someone worth befriending. The next morning, my father and mother sat on the sofa with serious expressions. Seeing me come downstairs, my father cleared his throat and said, "Yuzuki, starting today, you'll come to work at the company with me. Your mother and I have been overprotective of you before. Any stranger could easily deceive and take you away. Now we should start training you like we would an heir." I had been longing for this opportunity, so I agreed immediately after father finished speaking. Without further questions, father instructed the driver to prepare another car. The Lin family is different from other wealthy families. Mother didn't choose the diplomatic wife route, instead joining the company alongside father after my birth, sharing equal equity, with both spouses working hard together. The Lin family flourished accordingly, becoming one of Beijing's rare families that consistently climbed the social ladder without decline. Even if I had foolishly married Gu Qinghuai in my past life, my parents were no fools. According to my recollection, Gu Qinghuai's true coldness toward me likely began when he heard me say, "My parents had already made plans for me. I am the sole heir of the Lin family trust. If I die, almost all the assets will be transferred to a designated foundation to protect endangered wildlife on Changbai Mountain from poaching." Upon joining the company, my father appointed me as the chairman's assistant. After shadowing my father nonstop for a week, I quickly familiarized myself with the company's basic structure. Since it's a joint leadership by the couple, there's no factional struggle within the company. Everyone performs their own duties, and the salary package is commensurate with employees' efforts. With the experience of starting a business alone in my previous life, I basically grasped company matters instantly. Seeing my natural talent, my father immediately abandoned his initial thought of keeping me by his side. On Friday afternoon, as soon as the appointment order naming me as Deputy General Manager was issued, I immediately assumed my new position. For, while everything was peaceful on my side, Gu Qinghuai's situation was filled with gloom and despair. Without me, their financial benefactor, Gu's father was desperate to make a comeback. He immediately sent Jiang Yu out as a cash cow. At every high society banquet the Gu family could attend, Jiang Yu would be brought by Mr. Gu to toast each business magnate present. This explosive exclusive gossip came from my dear cousin, a fine young lady who utterly detested Jiang Yu. Back when Jiang Yu was trying to elevate her social status in their circle, she secretly smeared my cousin, her peer, countless times. Though my cousin retaliated in kind, the two became sworn enemies from then on. To get a close-up view of Jiang Yu's awkward situation, my cousin specially gave me an invitation to the weekend banquet. She wanted me to join her in watching the spectacle. Just thinking about Jiang Yu's arrogant demeanor in my past life fills me with malice. I'm no White Lotus protagonist. I'm just a petty person who loves to kick others when they're down, most skilled at reveling in my enemy's misfortunes. So that evening I made a grand entrance, dressed in the latest haute couture from the runway that made me look like the epitome of wealth and beauty. not to mention the priceless jewelry adorning me and the refined demeanor cultivated from being raised in an aristocratic family. The moment I stepped onto the red carpet, all the other minor celebrities instantly paled in comparison. The reporters' cameras all turned toward me. The host immediately put on an ingratiating smile when they saw me arrive. Handing me a signing pen with both hands for an autograph, I overheard a junior reporter in the corner whispering to their colleague, "Who is that? Such grand presence." When she arrived, even the newly crowned Best Actress made way for her to take photos first. Their colleague quickly hushed. "You don't know, that's a genuine Beijing socialite, a true heiress. 60% of the celebrities at this gala are employees of her family's company." The questioning reporter gasped, then quickly shut their mouth before my gaze swept over them. That reporter wasn't wrong. Many actors and celebrities in the entertainment industry are indeed our family's employees. However, the Lin family's business empire extends far beyond just the entertainment industry. Finance, internet, computing, catering, culture. The Lin family has ventures in all these fields. Serving as my male escort was the renowned director who watched me grow up. He chatted with me as we walked into the inner venue together. Many familiar celebrities immediately swarmed around, engaging in conversation with the director. I, on the other hand, found my cousin, grabbed some food from the buffet area in the venue, and sat in a corner to eat. The people at the banquet all had different purposes. Business tycoons holding capital either chatted casually or exchanged the latest market trends and future industry policies amidst laughter and smiles. The celebrities' intentions are quite blatant. An accomplished veteran actor stands beside a familiar director, discussing the upcoming filming work. With just a few words, they secured a role that could make an unknown actor famous overnight. Yet more are those obscure but good-looking minor celebrities, constantly searching for targets on the scene. The entertainment industry is never short of beauties. At this time in my previous life, I got engaged and married to Gu Qinghuai. Gu Qinghuai said it was because our family had no power or influence. His younger sister Jiangyu suffered constant bullying in the dance troupe. Jiangyu now wants to switch careers and enter the entertainment industry, asking for my help. For this reason, I went to great lengths at the time to stop Jiangyu from going to accompany wealthy sponsors for drinks. I forcefully got her, who wasn't skilled enough, into a dance variety show. Later, I also spent money on data manipulation and marketing for her. She was forcibly elevated to a height that didn't belong to her, despite being worlds apart from top dancers in terms of innate talent. In this lifetime, I simply smiled faintly. In this life, I didn't help her pull strings. She didn't even qualify for the preliminary auditions. Maybe I can only tag along to the cocktail party by mooching a ticket to accompany older men. As midnight approached, most of the overt business discussions had concluded. A small group of executives, directors, and celebrities left first, while the rest tacitly headed to the top floor, exchanging glances with my cousin. We also stood up and waited by the elevator to go to the top floor. After all, we came here tonight specifically to see the excitement. How could we possibly miss the most thrilling part of the show? My cousin is delicately beautiful, with every smile and frown exuding the charming innocence of a young girl. As for me, I am striking and glamorous, with every gesture radiating an aura of decisive authority. Coupled with our exquisitely expensive evening gowns, we stood out from the crowd even more. The young nobleman beside me gulped and whispered to his companion, "Which noble family do these two beauties belong to? Their master must be quite the lucky man." Before he could finish, his companion immediately panicked and tried to hush him, but it was too late. The female bodyguard behind me strode forward and slapped the young nobleman twice across the face. Blood immediately gushed from his nose and mouth as he collapsed onto the ground. The minor celebrity in his arms let out a shriek and stumbled away in fright. I looked down at the disheveled nobleman with the same disdain one would show to trash. The banquet manager heard the commotion and hurried over, bowing and scraping to apologize to me. Then he escorted my cousin and me to the VIP elevator. My cousin snorted coldly. If it weren't for watching Jiangyu make a fool of herself, I'd never come to such a disgusting place. I glanced at her with a smile and comforted her. Just think about how we'll soon see Jiangyu humiliated. Doesn't that make it better? As I finished speaking, the elevator reached the top floor where a bowing attendant stood at the door. I casually picked up a glass of red wine and walked toward the venue. Compared to the cocktail party downstairs, the people at the upstairs party were more like beasts unleashing their primal instincts, greed, profit above all, and clear class divisions. The wealthy bosses were the center of attention, while their companions fawned over them, carefully currying favor with their benefactors. Among a crowd of good-looking celebrities, I also spotted the person we came to see tonight, Jiangyu. Unlike the image we imagined of her being unyielding even unto death, vowing to remain chaste for Gu Qinghuai, here, she was dressed lightly, leaning against a man in his 40s with coquettish laughter. The two were whispering, and occasionally I could hear Jiang Yu's deliberate coyness and laughter. I curled my lips. It seems exactly as I imagined. Jiang Yu was never an easy person to deal with. Poor Gu Qinghuai, such a lovesick fool. Even his posthumous inheritance went to that wretched woman. Who knew she only saw him as a gullible fool and a backup option? Photography and recording were prohibited at the party. My cousin and I sat in a corner, listening with great interest to Jiang Yu's conversation with that wealthy businessman. At this party, Jiang Yu was just a minor internet celebrity. Her looks couldn't compare to those stunning celebrities, but as a dance major, her figure was truly 1 in 100. Seeing the wealthy businessman's gaze drawn by a passing celebrity, Jiang Yu immediately cooed, "Uncle, you're not allowed to look." Could her figure possibly compare to mine? As she spoke, her cousin sitting behind them made an exaggerated gagging expression. My eyes were filled with sarcasm. After all, Jiang Yu has built her online persona as the clear-headed female lead. In her videos, she advocates that women should earn their living through their own abilities. Any method relying on beauty and figure isn't sustainable. Girls should have self-respect and self-love. Watching Jiang Yu being manhandled before my eyes, I let out a cold laugh. Seems like you can't fully trust what internet celebrities say after all. After all, whether influencers are angels or demons behind the camera remains unknown. The party didn't end until late at night. The wealthy merchant dusted himself off and prepared to move to the hotel with Jiang Yu. The corners of my mouth curled slightly as I sent a message on my phone before leisurely getting up to leave with my cousin. In his past life, Gu Qinghuai was deeply infatuated with Jiang Yu. How could I just stand by and watch Jiang Yu submit to someone else now? Of course, I had to let Gu Qinghuai play the hero and save the beauty. 5. The Lin family's business ventures span a wide range. Luxury hotels are among them. After a drinking session, the wealthy businessman brought Jiang Yu to a 5-star hotel under the Lin Group for check-in. When she saw the hotel's name, a flicker of unease passed through Jiang Yu's eyes. Today, Gu Qinghuai was conducting business negotiations nearby. Given his previous playboy habits, he would undoubtedly choose this hotel. Fortunately, they were on different floors, so there was no chance of running into each other. But before she could finish feeling relieved, the hotel manager apologetically informed the wealthy businessman, "Sir, there's an issue with the bathroom in your reserved room, and it's temporarily unavailable. We've upgraded your room for free. It still has the auspicious room number 1888. Would that be acceptable?" Upon hearing the room number 1888, the businessman's face lit up with joy, and he eagerly agreed, as the two headed upstairs. The manager finally came to the VIP lounge with great respect to report the completion of the task to me. I took a sip of the fine tea in my cup with a beaming smile. Next, watch me kill 2 birds with 1 stone and reap the benefits from others' conflict. I knew that Jiang Yu's initiative to seduce the sponsor must have been done under the implicit suggestion of Father Gu. After all, Mr. Gu recently thought he had discovered another industry trend and urgently needed a large sum of money to invest. Gu Qinghuai had just finished paying off his father's debts and wouldn't spare a single penny more. Jiang Yu had grown tired of living in poverty, especially after witnessing the wealth of my Lin family, and was obsessed with climbing the social ladder. So the father and daughter hit it off immediately and quickly found a wealthy backer. As I looked through the materials prepared by my assistant, a faint smile flashed in my eyes, but they were too impatient and completely failed to notice. This wealthy businessman is just a spineless man who rose to prominence through his wife, with an exceptionally domineering wife and children. According to the information I leaked, the wealthy wife will come to catch them in the act in half an hour, while waiting for the wealthy lady to arrive at the hotel. I got up and headed to the changing room, changed into the hotel attendant's uniform. In addition to the standard white shirt and black trousers, I deliberately pinned a thumb-sized brooch next to the name tag. The brooch contained a pinhole camera, allowing me to capture exciting moments while observing the scene. Half an hour later, the floor manager responsible for the 18th floor called urgently. Said a group of people came up aggressively, swiping a room card to open room 1888. The leading socialite dragged out a barely clothed woman from the room. Now she's pulling her hair and slapping her face. "I'll bring the manager upstairs right away." As soon as the elevator doors opened on the 18th floor, I heard sharp curses and a girl's crying in the hallway. The voices were accompanied by loud slaps. "You shameless woman, so young yet already seducing married men. Today I'll teach you a proper lesson to keep you from straying down this wicked path." Someone Come and scar her face. With that, I quickly stepped forward, positioning myself at an angle where I could clearly see the noblewoman's face. This position not only provided the clearest view of the cheating scene unfolding in the corridor, through the half-open door, one could still see the face of the trembling wealthy merchant, wrapped only in a towel, the manager, and I stood there, watching helplessly as the noblewoman's servant stepped forward and firmly gripped Jianyu's face. The next moment, disregarding Jianyu's struggles and pleas, the servant mercilessly slashed her face twice without hesitation. Blood splattered onto the carpet as Jianyu let out a wail, clutching her face and collapsing to the ground. Seeing the timing was ripe, a glint of amusement flashed in my eyes. What's so fun about just disfiguring Jianyu? Now that Gu Qinghuai is staying in room 1889, how could we not let him join in on such an exciting spectacle? But the soundproofing in 5-star hotels is excellent. No matter how loud the commotion in the hallway, it wouldn't reach the room. I turned my head and gave the manager beside me a look. The manager immediately understood and pretended to panic as he pushed through the crowd. When passing by room 1889, the master key at my waist silently pressed against the keypad lock. A soft sound. Gu Qinghuai's door opened. The manager immediately stepped forward and whispered to the noblewoman, "Madam, the hotel is crowded and prying eyes are everywhere. It's not safe to stay long. We'll call 120 in 10 minutes at most." Saying, a woman fainted in the hallway from low blood sugar, her face scratched by a hairpin. "You and your people should hurry." The noblewoman, pleased by the manager's tact, nodded in satisfaction. Then she glared maliciously at Jianyu, who was surrounded by the crowd, her clothes in tatters. Next, Jianyu was destined to endure the most painful 10 minutes of her life. With Jianyu's scream, the servant at the front had already taken action. They mercilessly yanked out a small clump of her hair. With such commotion, even someone sleeping like a log would be startled awake. The shriek slipped through the door crack and pierced Gu Qinghuai's ears. He rose impatiently, frowning as he pushed open the door, about to scold when a sentence drilled into his ears. "What are you hiding from, Miss Jianyu? You volunteered to be the other woman back then. So why are you acting scared now that I've come knocking?" After speaking, Gu Qinghuai heard his younger sister's sobs. He yanked the door open instantly, only to see Jianyu crouching naked in the hallway, being surrounded and slapped repeatedly. In his shock, Gu Qinghuai failed to notice me standing not far away, wearing a face mask. Jianyu was forced to lift her head as someone yanked her hair, catching a glimpse of Gu Qinghuai's face in her peripheral vision. Instantly clinging to him like a lifeline, she cried out with hope in her eyes, "Brother, come save me quickly." Gu Qinghuai's pupils trembled violently. Just as he was about to speak, his business partner emerged from the room, looking at Jianyu on the ground with a puzzled expression. "Qinghuai, is this your sister?" Hearing his friend's voice, Gu Qinghuai suddenly snapped out of his daze as if waking from a deep dream, staring at the disheveled, naked Jianyu before him. "Then I thought about my usual identity as a carefree young master." Gu Qinghuai gritted his teeth and pretended to sneer coldly. "How could my sister possibly be the kind of woman who actively becomes the other woman? You're insulting me." After speaking, under Jianyu's shocked gaze, Gu Qinghuai patted his partner's shoulder and turned away first. "Going back to my room. People are watching the mistress get beaten, but I have a meeting tomorrow." 6. I stood coldly at the back of the crowd. I watched Jianyu get beaten for a full 10 minutes. By the time the crowd dispersed, Jianyu lay on the ground, covered in bruises. Apart from the facial wounds, the most severe injury was undoubtedly the leg fracture. That's because the manager had just whispered in the noblewoman's ear, "Madam, when you hit her, be careful of her legs. She's a dancer. Breaking her legs could cause trouble." The noblewoman's anger was instantly provoked. "What can a mere dancer do? I'm not afraid of some mistress. Beat her up." As soon as the servant finished speaking, the staff came down hard, striking Jianyu's calf and shin bone, instantly bending them into a grotesque curve. Jianyu let out a blood-curdling scream before completely losing consciousness. I turned and instructed the manager, "Call 120, and remember to send the bill to the Gu residence." The manager nodded. I took out my phone and condescendingly took 2 photos of Jianyu to send to my cousin. Happiness shared is happiness doubled. Good things are meant to be shared. Without her proud appearance and legs, Jianyu would most likely never be able to turn her life around in this lifetime. I didn't come to the hotel just to laugh at Jianyu's misfortune. Recently, the Lin Corporation has been bidding against the wealthy businessman who came to catch his cheating spouse, and the video footage I have of the affair is the best bargaining chip. After all, the public persona of that wealthy businessman is that of a filial, family-oriented, gentle and humble entrepreneur. The assistant sent me the documents for the upcoming bidding process. After I gave the final approval, we prepared to attend the bidding meeting with the team on Monday. I attach great importance to this bid, as it's the first major project I'll participate in since taking office. The wealthy merchant, relying on his status, only half-heartedly assigned a minor executive as the bid presenter during the tender meeting. The bid documents were also a complete mess, causing the leaders sitting across the table to shake their heads repeatedly. It was completely different from the Lin Group's approach. The outcome was undoubtedly predictable. The Lin family undoubtedly secured this project. Before leaving, that petty leader gave me a hostile look, then sneered and forced out a sentence through gritted teeth. It seems the younger generation is truly formidable. Miss Lin, I smiled humbly. Thinking to myself, I even had the VCR of your boss being caught in bed. Of course I'm formidable. Seeing my shameless behavior, the petty official was so angry his potbelly visibly swelled. He stormed off with his entourage in a huff. When I got home and told my father about it, he just waved his hand dismissively. Nothing to be afraid of. That family is in complete chaos right now. Didn't he get caught cheating a while back? Later when he returned home, he was diagnosed with a venereal disease. His children seized the opportunity to try dividing up their father's assets. Now they're in the middle of a huge fight. My eyes widened instantly, and I gasped in surprise. Father sneered, that shameless old lecher, still fooling around at his age, serves him right. Seeing the look of surprise and slight disappointment on my face, my father immediately caught on. What? That old bastard got caught. And you actually seem a bit disappointed, embarrassed. I confessed to Dad about secretly photographing the tycoon's wife catching him in the act. A flicker of delight flashed in Dad's eyes. After praising me briefly, he said, this scandal still happened at a hotel under our Lin Group's banner. When it blows up, we'll be their first suspect. Unless we're ready to burn bridges with that family, it's better to just use this to intimidate Jiang Yu, not them, unless absolutely necessary. I nodded in understanding. Leave room for reconciliation, as you may meet again someday. My father, afraid I might take things too hard, patted my shoulder and said, but you did the right thing. Just remember to balance firmness with flexibility. Never push things to the extreme, always leave some leeway. You're still young. I'll teach you these things gradually. 7. I initially thought the wealthy merchant would retaliate fiercely against me. Little did I know it was all thunder but no rain. Now that merchant is in the hospital praying to gods and Buddhas, just waiting for doctors to prolong his life. After taking over the project, I led the team to achieve significant results. The success of this project helped me establish my position within the company. At the group's quarterly review meeting, my father specifically praised the department I led. He credited me entirely for driving the department's profits to a record high this quarter. After the meeting ended, my father's assistant handed me a document. I opened it and took a look. It was a new project from a large company currently seeking collaboration, and it happened to align perfectly with my department, so it was assigned to us. But seeing the meaningful smile on my father's face as he left, I instinctively felt things weren't that simple. It wasn't until I received Gu Qinghuai's text message on my phone that I understood why I felt something was off. It was Gu Qinghuai inviting me out for coffee, and on my desk lay the documents my assistant had just delivered to me. On the competitor company's page, Gu Qinghuai's identity information was prominently displayed. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This was my father testing me, probing to see if I still had lingering feelings for Gu Qinghuai. After work on Friday afternoon, I packed up my things and went to the cafe. Gu Qinghuai was sitting with his classmates chatting, discussing topics about me. Seeing how nervous Gu Qinghuai looked, his classmate patted his shoulder and said with a laugh, "Don't worry, Lin Yuqing likes you so much, she'll definitely give you this business deal. If all else fails, just tell her that if she doesn't give it to you, you won't marry her. See what she does then." As soon as the words fell, I got up from the seat next to him, sneered, and slammed my bag on the bench. His classmate didn't expect me to be right beside him and was instantly mortified with embarrassment. But something even more embarrassing for him was about to happen. I used to like Gu Qinghuai and went out of my way to protect his fragile self-esteem. I set aside my pride as a wealthy heiress, wearing cheap shirts worth just a few dozen yuan every day, circling around Gu Qinghuai like a junior schoolgirl. So even though I was rich, no one really felt the impact of my wealth. But now, times have changed. Even the bag I casually tossed on the chair is a limited edition luxury piece. Without additional allocations, the market price reaches millions, yet remains unavailable despite the high valuation, not to mention the watch and bracelet on my wrist, both bearing distinct brand signatures. I glanced lightly at Gu Qinghuai's classmate and sneered, "Don't get cocky with me. Just yesterday, your uncle was toasting me at the banquet, begging me to go easy on your family. And today you're here playing the big shot. Are you trying to bankrupt your uncle's company?" Gu Qinghuai's classmate immediately shut their mouth. After handling this matter, I crossed my arms and looked at Gu Qinghuai with a provocative expression. Go on, keep talking. I was wondering why you still shamelessly cling to me even after I called off the engagement. Turns out you just want me to hand over my business to you. Is this the only low-life trick you men know? How pathetic can you get? As soon as she finished speaking, the two people opposite her flushed red as if slapped across the face. Gu Qinghuai's classmate snapped sharply, Lin Yuqing, if you don't want to do business, fine, but don't insult people here. I let out a cold laugh and gave him a merciless look. Bai Yunjing, right, Gu Qinghuai's close buddy from the upper bunk. No surprise you're cut from the same cloth. Not long ago, Gu Qinghuai even talked about marrying off Jiangyu, the sister you've had a crush on for years. To you, you were overjoyed and already acting like you're part of the Gu family, and you yourself are a down-to-earth, hard-working young master with no worries about food or clothing. Quite a suitable match indeed. The Gu family has really put in great effort to find such a fine son-in-law like you. Gu Qinghuai's expression suddenly changed upon hearing my words. The smile in my eyes deepened. But do you know why you haven't even been able to see Jiangyu recently? Gu Qinghuai immediately stopped me upon seeing my meaningful smile. Lin Yuqing, don't go too far. I slapped away his pointing finger and connected my phone to the cafe's projection screen. The video of Jiangyu kneeling naked on the hotel carpet being slapped began to play. I didn't even notice when the coffee shop had been cleared out by me. Apart from the three of us, there was only the owner standing behind the counter who didn't even look up. Bai Yunjing clearly saw the face of the person in the video, and his expression instantly became quite dramatic, along with the woman's curses, sobs, and footsteps in the video. I leisurely tucked the stray hair behind my ear and explained kindly, previously, Jiangyu voluntarily became a rich businessman's mistress for money, only to be dragged off the hotel bed by his wife and beaten while having her hair pulled. Your good friend Gu Qinghuai happened to be staying next door and even watched the whole scene, but obviously, he chose to betray his friend by not telling you, wanting you to be the one to pick up the pieces. However, Jiangyu's face is now disfigured, and her legs are broken, completely ending her career as a dancer. Now, are you still willing? Is your Bai family still willing to accept her? After all, she's a sister he's lived with day and night. Just as Gu Qinghuai was about to stand up and argue, I pressed him back onto the stool with one sentence. Oh, and here's some extra good news for you. The wealthy businessman Jiangyu was fooling around with was recently diagnosed with tertiary syphilis. My eyes curved into crescents. Next, it'll be your turn. After saying that, I immediately got up and left, leaving the two of them entangled in the coffee shop. According to my speculation, we're all adults here. Where do all these pure love warriors come from? Needless to say about Gu Qinghuai, Bai Yunjing's deep devotion to Jiangyu definitely goes beyond just dating and holding hands, but the most unfortunate thing is, Bai Yunjing's family is in politics. He just passed the civil service exam and is now waiting for the medical checkup to secure his position. Even if syphilis is cured, it can still be detected in tests. Moreover, with the medical examination process imminent, it's too late for treatment now. For a family in politics, having a child involved in such a scandal would bring lifelong ridicule. His future is completely ruined. 15 minutes after I left the coffee shop owner called the police, reporting a violent fight in his store, the kind where people were beating each other to death. 8. Since that day we parted at the coffee shop, news came from the Bai family. Bai Yunjing, the second son of the Bai family, committed suicide the day before his physical examination. Immediately afterwards, news broke that the Bai and Gu families had severed ties. According to my father, who went to pay his condolences at the time, the Bai family was rather indifferent to Bai Yunjing's death. The eldest son of the Bai family didn't even shed a single tear, merely greeting guests with a cold expression. I let out a mocking laugh. This is a critical moment. If Bai Yunjing's scandal were exposed, the entire Bai family would surely face dire consequences. Therefore, sacrificing the pawn to save the king is the only choice. News from the Gu family soon followed. Gu Qinghuai was diagnosed. He had no mood to deal with company affairs anymore. The bidding matter was entirely entrusted to the partner. Although Gu Qinghuai's buddy was unreliable, the partner had genuine talent and knowledge, but even so, due to the incompetence of his subordinates, he became my defeated opponent. After the bidding concluded, I invited him to have a drink together. At the dinner table, I smiled gently. Why don't you consider joining our company, or I could invest and collaborate with you? Let Gu Qinghuai get lost. In my past life, Gu Qinghuai and he parted ways early due to disagreements. He went abroad alone, caught the industry trend, and then rose rapidly. accumulated a considerable amount of capital in just a few short years. We bear no grudges against each other, so of course I must seize this opportunity to develop the Lin family business in this lifetime. The partner smiled faintly and readily agreed. After all, compared to Gu Qinghuai, with the ample financial resources and extensive connections of the Lin family behind me, there's no one like Gu's father to boss him around. He didn't share any particularly deep bond with Gu Qinghuai either. As fellow businesspeople, they quickly reached an agreement. Gu Qinghuai, having outlived his usefulness, was simply cast aside. Just as the Gu family was in complete chaos, Jiang Yu was found to be pregnant. With this child, Mr. Gu's petty schemes immediately resurfaced. He took Jiang Yu to the wealthy merchant's doorstep, wailing and demanding an explanation. But what he didn't know was that the power in the wealthy merchant's family had already changed hands. The daughter and son of that family somehow managed to split the shares equally. Then with swift and decisive action, they sent their philandering father to a mental hospital. Upon hearing about the Gu family's actions in the wealthy merchant's household, a glint of interest flashed in their eyes. The Gu family is utterly foolish beyond belief. There's a reason why that wealthy merchant dares to play around so recklessly. A car accident over a decade ago left that wealthy merchant infertile. As for that bastard child in Jiang Yu's belly now, even I don't know who the father is. Gu Qinghuai's, by Yunjing's, these have nothing to do with me anymore. In the end, that family of clowns was driven out, and their reputation became notorious in the capital. The sharp nails dug into the flesh, causing a sharp, stinging pain. My father recognized my abilities and officially began grooming me as his successor. Meanwhile, the business with my partner's company was flourishing more and more. No wonder he was such an elite in his previous life, capable of building such vast fortunes. This time around, I let him manage everything independently while I just handled investments, and we still made a killing. In his previous life, Gu Qinghuai jumped off a building because of stomach cancer. By the time he discovered it, it was already in the late stages. Judging by the current timeline, if I warn him early enough, he might still be saved. But why should I do that? I will make him lose all reputation and die in agony from illness, letting him taste what I endured in my past life. Spring passed and autumn came. Time slipped away swiftly. 2 years later, my father felt I had grown fully capable and decisively stepped back, passing the position of Lin Group's leader to me, and I lived up to expectations, seamlessly taking the helm of the Lin Group's massive enterprise. My future will be brilliantly bright. Story 2. In my previous life, Jiangqi had cancer. And everyone kept it from me. In order to set me free, he started having an affair, verbally humiliating me and subjecting me to cold violence. I couldn't stand it anymore and finally agreed to the divorce. However, his friends stood on the moral high ground and told me about his good intentions and the truth of his cancer. In a state of collapse, I committed suicide out of love for him, but after my death, Jiangqi was saved. I watched him crying bitterly in front of my tombstone. Then, persuaded by his friends, he pulled himself together and married the woman he had an affair with. When I returned to the day of the party, Jiangqi jokingly said, "Let's get a divorce." Instead of getting angry, I said calmly, "Sure." After I said this, the scene suddenly fell into an eerie silence. In the large and luxurious private room, only I continued to lower my head and eat the bird's nest in the bowl as if I didn't notice. The hand with which Jiangqi had been holding Ning Lan slowly loosened. His handsome face, which had jokingly said that he had fallen in love with someone else and wanted to divorce me, gradually became stiff and ugly. He seemed to have never expected that I would say such a thing, or rather, he knew how much I loved him, so even if it was just a seemingly joking remark, I would take it seriously, get angry, and then start making a scene. How could I say the word yes so calmly? His friends, who each had their own ulterior motives, looked at each other in surprise. For a moment, the premeditated plan to watch me get angry, cry, and make a fool of myself shattered. The plot took a sharp 90-degree turn, catching these people off guard, but I wasn't very happy. I calmly scanned the faces of these people in front of me one by one. Finally, my gaze fixed on Ning Lan's beautiful and glamorous face. In my previous life, I regarded her as my best friend. But I had forgotten that she and Jiangqi were close friends who grew up together since childhood. No matter how much she had protected me and how loyal she had seemed in normal times, at the crucial moment, the knife she stabbed into my back was that much deeper and more painful. Ning Lan's expression became a little unnatural under my gaze. She instinctively glanced at Jiangqi. Seeing that he was staring at me intently, with a dark face, his jaw clenched tightly, her eyes dimmed for a moment, then she immediately put on a hearty smile and came over to pull me. "Come on, don't be angry. It was just that stupid idea of Zhou Su's. We were just kidding with you." I took a step back and avoided her outstretched hand. Without a smile on my face, I looked at Ji and said, "But I'm not joking, seriously. Let's get a divorce, Ingchi, too." Ning Lan stood between me and Ji, looking at me and then at Ji, looking extremely at a loss. Her acting skills had always been very good. If I hadn't died once and my wandering soul had witnessed her kicking over my tombstone with a look of disgust, I'm afraid I wouldn't have known. Under Ning Lan's seemingly hearty and generous mature woman's appearance, there was a heart full of distortion and jealousy. It was rare for her to show such a helpless look. Although I wasn't the cause of it, the blame from everyone present still pointed at me because of her. Zhou pushed his chair away and came over forcefully, shouting at me irritably and impatiently, "Xieching, don't go too far. We already said it was a joke. You have to make it so embarrassing. Can't you take a joke?" This was really ironic. It was clearly them who were joking, and I was the victim. Yet they turned around and blamed me for not being able to take a joke. Zhou always spoke bluntly and harshly. I used to think that was just his personality and that he was like this with everyone, so I tried to tolerate him as much as possible. Later, I realized that he was actually like this only towards me. As Jiangqi's wife, I had never been accepted by his friends from beginning to end. I ignored what Zhou was saying, as if he were barking like a dog. My gaze remained fixed on Jiangqi. When Jiangqi saw that I showed no sign of backing down, he finally realized that what I had said was very likely serious. He was so angry that he laughed. He let out a cold sneer. Then, he grabbed Ning Lan's arm and pulled her into his arms. He stared at me fiercely and said in a vengeful tone, "Fine, you said it, don't regret it, go home and pack your things. We'll go get the divorce certificate tomorrow." After saying that, in front of everyone, he suddenly lowered his head and kissed Ning Lan's lips. It was a passionate and predatory kiss full of emotions, starting from their lips touching and gradually deepening with the sound of their tongues intertwining. The lighting overhead created just the right atmosphere. The woman's soft waist bent under the force, and the man's long fingers with distinct knuckles, gripping her slender neck, were like the most passionate scenes in a TV drama. I saw Ning Lan pretending to resist and pushing against Jiangqi's chest a few times. When she couldn't push him away, she unconsciously reached up and wrapped her arms around his neck. I heard someone gasp in surprise, and then there were the sounds of people excitedly taking out their phones to take pictures. Since I was the closest to them, I could see the most indescribable details. I opened my pale and trembling lips, wanting to say something, but I didn't know what to say. It was just that a soft part of my heart was impacted. It was as if something very precious that I had hidden deep inside me had gently and silently shattered the moment Jiangqi kissed someone else without caring about me. Then, I closed my eyes tightly, with a numb face, and turned around and walked out. 3. It started to drizzle outside. The sky and the earth were in a state of chaos. The streetlights were dim and yellow, and the branches of the trees by the roadside, shrouded in darkness, were waving menacingly in the cold wind. There was a couple standing beside me, whispering for a while. Then the boy took off his coat and covered the girl with it. The two of them clung to each other tightly and rushed into the rain together. I watched as they quickly got into the car parked by the roadside. I was in a trance. I felt as if I had forgotten something, but I couldn't remember it. It wasn't until I got home and started packing my things in the room that I suddenly found an umbrella at the bottom of the box. Immediately, my tears couldn't hold back and burst out. It was a transparent folding umbrella. The inside of the umbrella was filled with my favorite cartoon patterns drawn with a black marker pen. One day after school, it rained heavily. I was supposed to go home with my classmate, but then I saw my deskmate. He was standing under the eaves, looking at the gray sky with a distant and lonely expression. He must have forgotten to bring an umbrella. However, there was no one in his family who could bring him an umbrella anymore. I suddenly felt a little sorry for him. After some hesitation, I finally stuffed the umbrella in my hand into his. "Don't bother returning it. Consider it a thank you for teaching me how to do the math problems." I used a generous and indifferent gesture to hide my girlish feelings and gave away my favorite umbrella. Then, without even daring to look at his reaction, I turned around and ran under my classmate's umbrella, urging her to leave quickly. My classmate laughed at my burning hot cheeks. I was so annoyed that I started fighting with her, but I couldn't help looking back through the rain under the umbrella. The boy was wearing a blue and white school uniform. His tall and slender figure stood out in the crowd, and he held the umbrella firmly in his hand. The rain was falling, and only the sound of my thumping heart could be heard. The next day, the rain continued. I can't remember what kind of mood I was in when I saw him again, but I still remember every subtle movement when he walked in through the back door of the classroom. The transparent cartoon umbrella didn't end up sitting in a row with the group of colorful umbrellas in the corner of the corridor. It was held in the boy's slender and fair hand, and the rain on the umbrella surface was wiped dry little by little with a soft handkerchief. Then the umbrella was smoothed out, folded up, and carefully put away in the desk, placed together with his textbooks. Jiangqi, who was 18 years old, looked up and met my gaze that I couldn't dodge in time. He smiled, and his eyebrows and eyes curved like a crescent moon. He said that he would cherish it for a lifetime. At that time, the thin layer of window paper between us hadn't been broken yet, but in the sound of our two young, suppressed, and violently beating hearts, we both knew that what he meant was that he would cherish me for a lifetime. The rain stopped. I dried my tears and calmed down my emotions. Then I picked up the umbrella that had been forgotten by its owner for many years. Its surface was old and yellowed, the cartoon drawings were blurred, and the frame had long since rusted and decayed, emitting a bad smell of deterioration. I looked at it and sat by the bed all night without sleeping, facing the night. I don't know how long it took, but the night faded away. A ray of dawn broke through the clouds, casting my figure in sharp black and white contrast. I moved my cold and stiff hands and feet, stood up, picked up the old umbrella, and threw it into the trash can. Then, I dialed Jiangqi's phone number. The summer rain in my youth should come to an end, for the phone rang many times before it was finally answered. But what came into my ears was a lazy female voice, as if she had just woken up. "Hello, who is this?" She then yawned. But in my silence, like still water, it seemed a bit deliberate. After a while, Ning Lan's voice sounded again. She said in a low voice, with a bit of apology and embarrassment, "I took the wrong phone. Wait a moment, I'll wake Chi up." "No need," I interrupted her. Then I said calmly, "Please tell him that I prepared all the materials. Let's meet at the Civil Affairs Bureau at 3 p.m. Without giving the other side a chance to react, I hung up the phone directly. I hadn't eaten anything from last night until now, but I felt very nauseous and wanted to vomit. What loving me, what never regretting the deep affection. In the end, he could sleep with someone else in the blink of an eye. No matter what the reason is, the person who is going to cheat will still cheat in the end. I remembered that in my previous life, after I accidentally discovered this matter, I was so heartbroken that I almost fainted. I lost all my reason and questioned the two of them like a shrew. As a result, Ning Lan had an apologetic look on her face, but she said it was a misunderstanding, an accident, and hoped that I wouldn't blame Jiangqi, and Jiangqi simply didn't defend himself at all. He let me cry, make a scene, and question him about whether what he had said before still counted. He just remained silent, as if he had some unspeakable difficulties. He looked like he had grievances, had endured a lot, but didn't say anything. In the end, everyone took Jiangqi's side. They said he had his reasons, he didn't do it on purpose, and I shouldn't blame him like this. They were the ones who did it, but I was the one who was wrong. He was so calm that I looked like a madman. It made me start to doubt myself. Was I really making too much of a scene? Was it my fault that I shouldn't have made unfounded accusations and slandered the pure friendship between him and Ning Lan for so many years? That was why Jiangqi acted on impulse and simply confirmed the already ambiguous relationship with Ning Lan. I was in a daze and finally agreed to the divorce, but after Jiangqi handed me the divorce agreement, his condition worsened when he went back. Zhou Su and the others seemed to be unable to stand it any longer and rushed in front of me to scold me, saying that I had stimulated him. He asked me if I knew that Jiangqi had done all this out of revenge just to not drag me down. Jiangqi and I were deskmates in our youth and entered marriage together from school. Jiangqi's parents had both passed away. I was his only family member. He knew that no matter what, I would never leave him, so he chose this extreme way to drive me away. It was not easy for me to accept the reality that he had an affair and no longer loved me, but Zhou Su and the others said that he had hurt me like this because he loved me too much. Originally, Jiangqi could have lived for 2 more years. Now, because I had made too much of a scene, his condition suddenly deteriorated. It was all my fault. I only had one mouth and couldn't argue with a group of them. In the end, I completely collapsed mentally. After taking a look at Jiangqi, who was unconscious in the intensive care unit, I rushed to the rooftop of the hospital and jumped off. Thinking about it now, I was really stupid. Given a second chance, I choose to set myself free and let go of everything in the past. However, I waited at the Civil Affairs Bureau for a long time. It was not until the staff got off work that Jiangqi finally showed up. 5. I wasn't feeling well and only woke up half an hour ago. Before I could ask him, Jiangqi took the initiative to explain. His breathing was uneven, and the collar of his shirt under the long trench coat was slightly messy. He didn't even have time to tidy his hair, which was fluffy and sticking up, as if he had just crawled out of bed. He looked at the already closed Civil Affairs Bureau, exhaled a breath. I couldn't tell if he was sighing or relieved. Then he turned to me coldly and said, "Let's make another appointment for a different time." There was no other way. I told him to contact me directly when he was free, and then I didn't want to say anything more and turned to leave. But Jingji suddenly said, "In the morning, you called me," and Lan Lan answered, "What did she say to you?" I was inexplicably angry at his probing tone. The resentment that had been building up in my chest for a long time suddenly erupted. I turned around and sneered at him, "Aren't you two lying in the same bed? Don't you know what she said?" Jingji paused. To my surprise, his expression suddenly softened like the melting of spring snow. It was as if he had confirmed something. He truly let out a sigh of relief. Rarely did he explain to me in a softened tone, "You misunderstood. I drank too much last night, and she sent me home. Since I wasn't feeling well, she stayed to take care of me because she was worried." Leaving aside how ridiculous his words sounded, given our current relationship, I didn't know why he still felt the need to explain this to me. But soon, I understood. Right in front of me, Jingji suddenly coughed, and his face instantly turned a little pale, his handsome eyebrows furrowed tightly, as if he was in some pain. And he coughed several more times in succession. I couldn't tell if he was faking it or if it was real. Anyway, it had nothing to do with me. I turned around and left. There were rapid footsteps behind me, and Jingji grabbed my arm. His face was pale and ugly, and his jaw was tightly clenched. He almost gritted his teeth and said, "I said I wasn't feeling well. Don't you care at all?" I knew he was sick, and it was a serious illness. But so what? I moved my arm and frowned, saying, "Let go." Instead of letting go, Jingji tightened his grip on me, and his expression turned extremely bad. It was he who wanted to divorce me. Now that I readily agreed to the divorce, he was unhappy again. Jingji stared at me fiercely for a while, then suddenly flung my hand away. He coughed violently and said in a heavy tone, "Fine, I'll let you go." He suppressed his anger, as if there was an indescribable pain in his heart. Without saying a word, I lifted my leg and walked away, but suddenly, there was a loud noise behind me. Jingji fainted. I quickly called an ambulance and rushed him to the hospital urgently. After a moment of hesitation, I called Ning Lan. Anyway, after divorcing me, Jingji would marry her sooner or later. It wasn't appropriate for me, a soon-to-be ex-wife, to stay here. Upon hearing the news, Ning Lan said nothing and quickly rushed to the hospital. Zhou came with her. I stood up from the corridor bench and was about to tell them that Jingji had been sent for emergency treatment. Then I saw Ning Lan rushing up to me with a cold face. Suddenly, she raised her hand and slapped me hard across the face. I was stunned. I heard Ning Lan say to me in an unprecedentedly cold and hateful tone, "You're such a jinx. Are you only going to be satisfied when you've killed him?" 6. I touched my numb cheek on the side that had been slapped. Feeling the sharp ringing in my ears, I raised my head and was about to fight back. However, Zhou was quick and stepped forward to give me a hard push, knocking me to the ground. He stood in front of Ning Lan and looked down at me. He angrily scolded, "You still have the guts to fight back. Try hitting me." I propped myself up on the cold ground with my hands, trembling with anger. Just then, the light in the emergency room went out, and the doctor came out. Ning Lan couldn't be bothered to settle the score with me and immediately rushed forward. Zhou followed closely behind, but as he passed by me, he paused. Then, the expensive Italian handmade leather shoes on his feet stepped hard on the back of my hand that was propped on the ground. He was over 1.8 meters tall with firm muscles all over his body, and he almost crushed me with his entire weight. I cried out in pain and tears welled up in my eyes involuntarily. I looked up and glared at him, but I saw him standing under the ceiling light in the corridor, his silhouette blurred, with an extremely vicious sneer on his face. "If you have the guts, call the police." Like the breath of a devil, he taunted me silently with his lips. In an instant, I felt as if I had been dragged back into that dark period of my previous life when I was morally bullied and mentally collapsed. I felt as if icy cold water had been poured over my head, making me feel cold from head to toe. The thought of calling the police, which I had originally had, instantly vanished like ashes. I suddenly remembered that Zhou's family was extremely powerful. Calling the police was no different from directly calling Zhou and accusing him of the fact that he had bullied me. What else could I get besides a bout of ridicule? Previously, he might have been scruple of Jingji, and even when joking with me, he didn't dare to go too far. But now that my relationship with Jingji had completely broken down, he no longer concealed his hostility towards me. I couldn't figure it out before. Why did he hate me so much? But now I knew. He, Zhou, was just a lackey of Ning Lan. Since Ning Lan liked Jingji, he followed Jingji's lead. Since Ning Lan hated me, he hated me to the bone. I sat on the ground for a while, And when the pain subsided and my hands and feet regained their feeling, I stood up, without looking back. I left in a hurry, eager to escape. I called a moving company, packed all my luggage, and left the most prosperous city center. I returned to the old house in the suburbs, pushing open the door. There was a boring period drama playing on the TV. There was a musty and old smell in the house. The old woman in the wheelchair, who was dozing on the balcony, heard the commotion and lifted her dull and drooping eyelids, seeing me walking in with large and small bags of luggage, as if she had expected it. She twitched the corners of her mouth and asked me mockingly and triumphantly, "Look, what did I say? Were you kicked out?" 7. I ignored her as if I hadn't heard her and silently packed my luggage. My mother straightened up in the wheelchair and shakily picked up her reading glasses and put them on. She didn't ask anything and didn't care about anything. She just started eagerly promoting the son of the neighbor downstairs to me again. "I told you long ago not to aim too high. Why would a rich person take a fancy to you? You have neither a good chest nor a good butt. Now, you've been played by him for a few years and been kicked out just like that. I thought that guy wasn't a good person from the start. Fortunately, you two don't have children, and you can still get married. I'll call Aunt Sue to see if her son is at home. Stop packing and hurry up and dress up to meet him." She searched for the numbers one by one on the senior mobile phone. I angrily threw my clothes into the suitcase and said unbearably, "What, can't I live without a man? If you like Aunt Sue's son so much, why don't you marry him? You keep saying meet him every time we talk. People who don't know might think he's so great. I just want to ask, has he gotten out of prison yet? You're introducing a man like this, who messes around outside and doesn't have a proper job, to me. Am I really your daughter?" My mother's face immediately darkened, and her eyes were so fierce that it seemed as if she wanted to swallow me alive. She scolded, "It's already good that he doesn't mind you being divorced. You're still being picky. If you keep being picky, no one will want you. If you don't get married, do you want to drag me down for the rest of my life?" I felt a lump in my throat, unable to swallow it or spit it out. I was almost on the verge of depression. There was no reasoning with her at all. She wouldn't listen to anything. Her old and decayed concepts had already penetrated deep into her bones. Even her own flesh and blood had to make concessions for it. I simply stopped packing my luggage, stuffed everything into my room, and closed the door. "I won't drag you down. I'll move out in a few days." I heard the sound of the wheelchair rolling outside. Then there was a violent knocking on the door. My mother angrily cursed me, saying that I had grown too bold and was rebelling. She said, "Even if you move out, you still have to go on a blind date for me. Your divorce has already embarrassed me enough. Do you want me to lose face in front of the neighbors? Besides, what's wrong with little Sue? Don't listen to others' rumors. I'm your mother. Would I harm you?" I found earplugs and stuffed them into my ears. Then I started looking for rental houses on my phone. This home was still the same as before. Staying here for even a second more made me feel suffocated. I had thought that as long as I found a place to hide, and after Jiangchi woke up and we got divorced, my world would be peaceful. But things didn't turn out as I expected. After another time of not being able to eat and vomiting in the bathroom, I held a pregnancy test stick and stared at the 2 red lines on it, lost in a daze. 8. At this time in my previous life, I was still having crazy arguments with Jiangchi. At that time, I was on the verge of a mental breakdown. Because of the matter between him and Ming Lan, I was suspicious all day long. I didn't notice the abnormalities in my body at all. In this life, in just a few days, I had decided to divorce Jiangchi, and his condition had deteriorated earlier, and he had been admitted to the hospital. I didn't stay in the hospital and left directly, so Ming Lan and the others didn't have the opportunity to tell me the truth about Jiangchi's cancer and use this matter to fiercely besiege me. As a result, I accidentally discovered that I was pregnant. That is to say, when I died in my previous life, I was also pregnant with a baby in my belly. It was the death of both the mother and the child. I pressed my forehead against the mirror in front of the sink and closed my eyes, unable to express the sadness and pain in my heart. But when I opened my eyes again, tightly pursed my pale lips, and looked at myself in the mirror, I knew that I couldn't keep this child. It had come at the wrong time. I still had a tough battle to fight with Jiangchi and the others, and I simply didn't have the ability to take care of it. I stroked my belly, and a plan gradually took shape in my heart, even though my relationship with Jiangchi was currently tense. After all these years of affection, it wasn't so easy for him to let go. As long as he still cared, then the role of this child that was destined not to be kept could be maximized. I let out a sigh and softly said sorry to the baby. The next morning, I tiptoed out of the room, originally planning to sneak out, but I didn't expect that my mother got up so early. She was still sitting on that small balcony. The morning light was faint outside. making it impossible to see her expression clearly at the moment. Her voice was faint, like that of a ghost, getting up so early to meet which other man. I felt very uncomfortable hearing this and retorted, anyway, it's not to meet your little Sue. Unexpectedly, this time, she didn't argue with me. Instead, she said to me softly, Mom has already inquired for you. Little Sue will be back in a few days. You should go and meet him. With a click, I closed the door. I didn't bother to listen to what she said next. It was probably the same old story. I went to the hospital where Jiangqi was admitted, but I didn't directly go to his ward to visit him. Instead, I hid in the dark and observed. Jiangqi had already woken up. All day long, Ning Lan stayed by his side. Zhou Su couldn't stay in the ward for long. After a while, he would come out and go to the stairwell to smoke a depressed cigarette, but he was reluctant to leave. He could only, over and over again, like self-torture, watch the person he loved show tender concern for his best brother. At this moment, I walked down the stairs step by step, hearing the noise. Zhou Su looked up, seeing that it was me. Zhou Su immediately frowned. He exhaled a smoke ring and said in an unfriendly tone, What are you doing here? Didn't you learn your lesson last time? I stared at him and suddenly smiled. I said, How can a young lady like Ning Lan be so cheap and know she's the mistress but still act as one? Zhou Su's face instantly changed. He pointed at me, his expression fierce, and angrily said, Watch your mouth. I raised my eyebrows and quietly approached him. I continued, I've changed my mind. I'm not going to divorce Yingqi. This way, she will never have the chance to take my place. But a loose woman like her is a perfect match for a shameless dog like you who licks others' boots. Zhou Su cursed, and the veins on his forehead bulged. He habitually gave me a hard push. He was about to strike again, but he didn't expect that I missed a step and rolled down the stairs directly. Zhou Su was stunned for a moment, frowned, and stood on the high ground, looking down at me coldly, until I curled up, covered my stomach, and said with a pale and trembling face, My baby. Zhou Su's fingertips suddenly trembled, and the cigarette fell from his hand. His entire face instantly turned pale with shock. 9. Despite seeking medical treatment in time, the baby couldn't be saved. This was inevitable. After all, just in case, I had taken the abortion pill before coming. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was Jiangqi, wearing a hospital gown and with red eyes, sitting by my side. When he saw that I had woken up, he immediately sat up straight and wanted to hold my hand, but halfway through extending his hand, he let it drop dejectedly. His eyes were a little moist, and he said to me in a hoarse voice, The baby is gone. We had always wanted to have a child of our own. For this reason, Jiangqi had started preparing for pregnancy a long time ago, reducing his company's social engagements, quitting smoking and drinking, and having regular physical examinations. It was through this examination that the problem was found. I showed a shocked and sad expression. As our eyes met, tears rolled down my cheeks. Noticing Zhou Su standing in the corner with his head down and not saying a word, I raised my finger, pointed at him, and said with a sobbing voice and resentment, It was him. He pushed me down the stairs. The incident happened so suddenly that everyone was caught off guard. Now that Jiangqi knew the truth of the loss of the baby, he turned his head to look at Zhou Su, finding it almost unbelievable. Zhou Su opened his mouth but couldn't defend himself. After all, even if what I said was unpleasant, the fact that he had laid hands on me was undeniable. The next second, Jiangqi stood up and rushed forward, punching Zhou Su and knocking his head aside. He grabbed Zhou Su's collar tightly, furious, and roared at him, Are you crazy? She's my wife. That was my baby. The two of them fought fiercely. Basically, Zhou Su was the one getting beaten, and he didn't dare to fight back. It wasn't until Ning Lan came to break up the fight and was pushed hard by Jiangqi that Zhou Su lost his temper and counterattacked. What about Ning Lan? What on earth do you take her for? The air in the ward instantly became stagnant. Jiangqi looked at me, lying on the hospital bed, weak from the pain of losing the baby. He calmed down his rapid breathing. He coughed and suppressed it again. Ning Lan felt sorry for him and wanted to step forward to soothe his back, but he avoided her. It was such a similar scene, but this time, Jiangqi said in a deep voice, I have always only regarded Ning Lan as a friend. As soon as these words were spoken, Ning Lan took a stunned step back and looked at him with disappointment and pain. Zhou Su cursed, pushed him aside forcefully, and dragged Ning Lan out of the ward. I watched as Jiangqi called the nurse and asked to add a hospital bed beside mine. He wanted to move over and stay by my side. It was as if everything had returned to the beginning. He put away his thorns, his sarcasm and hurt, and revealed the true feelings of loving me. He said that even though the person was Zhou Su, since he had hurt me, he would definitely avenge me and our baby. Hearing these words, my heart couldn't help but tremble. But just as my emotions were slightly softening, I suddenly heard a strange mechanical voice. Detected a change in conditions. The current strategy time is shortened. The host is requested to complete the task of winning over the White Moonlight ex-wife within 1 month. If within 1 month, the White Moonlight ex-wife is not willing to sacrifice herself, the task will fail, and the host will lose the protagonist halo and stay in this world forever. Jiangji, who was holding my cold hand and gently stroking it, suddenly stopped his comforting movement. I was also suddenly stunned. 10. There has been a change in the conditions, Jiangji murmured in a low voice. He seemed a bit puzzled, but immediately, he keenly noticed that something was wrong with me. He lifted his eyelids, and his deep eyes locked onto me tightly. He smiled and said gently, "What's the matter, baby?" This call of baby was strange. Connecting it to that strange voice just now, it was hard for me not to feel wary. I pulled my hand back from his palm. I met his inquiring gaze. I hesitated for a moment, then lowered my eyes and said in a low voice, "I'm tired and want to take a rest for a while." Jiangji stared at me for a while longer, seeing that I really looked tired. He finally felt at ease. He gently covered me with the quilt and thoughtfully drew the curtains. From that day on, Jiangji moved into the same ward as me. He was a patient himself, yet he took care of me personally. Several times, the nurse wanted to persuade him and tell me about his condition, but Jiangji interrupted her. He clearly seemed to be hiding something from me and was being incredibly nice to me. It was as if the person who had deeply kissed Ning Lan in front of me some time ago and told me not to regret it wasn't him. If I didn't know there was something wrong with him, I might have thought I had some kind of schizophrenia. I prudently chose to stay put and maintained an indifferent attitude towards him. Finally, one night, I got the answer I wanted. At night, it was dark and quiet all around. Jiangji thought I was asleep and got up to go to the balcony to smoke. I heard that strange voice again. Jiangji talked to it, and his tone seemed a bit anxious. He asked, "System, what is Xie Qingyu's current love value for me?" The system replied, 61%. Jiangji clicked his tongue heavily. He said with chagrin, "No wonder she's been like a different person since I proposed the divorce. It seems I was too hasty." After a moment of silence, Jiangji said in a low voice, "That idiot Zhou Su. I don't know what he did to her behind my back. She even gave up the baby just to use me for revenge." My heart jolted in fear. So he had seen through it all. The system suddenly reminded, "Host, there are only 25 days left for the task." Jiangji snuffed out the cigarette butt and said in a deep voice, "I know, don't rush me." He started turning around and walking back into the ward. Obviously, the only sound in the room was his footsteps, but his voice rang clearly in my ears at the same time. The female lead and the male supporting character are both unreliable. I have to do it myself. I'd built an airtight basement at home. I have plenty of ways to make her willingly die for me. Oh, by the way, if she's afraid of pain and doesn't dare to commit suicide, if I kill her with my own hands, will the task be considered completed? I heard the sound of the quilt being lifted beside me. Then, the bed sank with a creaking sound. The voice of the system also seemed to be ringing right inside my head. It said, "Yes, 11. Jiangji took away my phone. Normally, he wouldn't let me touch it on the grounds that he wanted me to have a good rest. Until the next day, my phone suddenly rang a few times. Someone had sent me a message. Jiangji had been peeling fruit. Hearing the sound, he picked up my phone and took a look. He raised his head and suddenly asked me with a half smile, "Wife, who is brother Sue? Why did he suddenly ask you to meet? It seems you've never mentioned him to me." I was startled, but I firmly suppressed my expression and calmly reached out my hand to him. "He's my cousin. We have a good relationship in the family. He moved to another place a few years ago, and we've had less contact, so I never told you about him. I guess he's stopping by to see my mom on his way back to our hometown." After hearing this, Jiangji didn't suspect anything. He knew how complicated my relationship with my mom was and also knew what a futile and face-saving person my mom was. If I didn't reply to my relative's message, I'm afraid my mom would call and start scolding me in the next second. The swear words she used were as unpleasant as they could be. Jiangji had been scolded by her and still regarded her with great caution, so without asking any more questions, he directly returned the phone to me. I quickly read the message, "Brother Sue, where are you? Brother Sue, address, Brother Sue, come and meet me immediately." While Jiangji got up to wash his hands, I quickly sent him 2 addresses, which were the hospital and Jiangji's home respectively. "Brother Sue, me, save me." After confirming that he had seen it, I immediately deleted these 3 messages. Then I sent some unimportant content, roughly saying that I had quarreled with my mom and didn't want to go home, and I was too lazy to look for him, so I told him to go and have fun on his own. It was very much like a conversation between siblings, and Su Lingzhou's way of speaking hadn't changed at all since he was a child. Besides sending question marks, he just greeted me. He asked me if I was crazy. I didn't reply to him anymore, because a pale and slender hand took the phone away from me. Jingqi scanned through the messages we had sent line by line and gave a soft laugh, but he didn't return the phone to me. Instead, he turned it off directly. All right. We've said what we needed to say, you can rest for a while longer. Later, the driver will come to pick us up and take us home. I clenched my hand hidden under the quilt and asked him in a flat tone, is your illness cured? Jingqi smiled ambiguously and said, I can also recuperate at home. This meant there was no room for doubt. Time was running out. Once I went home with him, my chance of escaping again would be very slim, so while he left the ward for a moment, I took the risk of getting out of bed and running outside directly, but I never expected that. Jingqi hadn't left at all. As soon as I opened the door, I bumped straight into Jingqi's chest, who was waiting for me at the door. He suddenly grabbed my wrist forcefully. He sneered and said, so you can really hear the voice of the system. 12, an hour later, I was locked up in the underground prison cage that Jingqi had carefully built, thinking that now my only hope was actually that unreliable neighbor brother whom I hadn't seen for years. I felt a bit desperate. There were some uncommon characters in the address. Could he recognize them? I should have just taken a chance and called the police the moment I got the phone. In my impression, Su Lingzhou never studied hard and didn't behave well since he was a child. He was a very prominent troublemaker. He was 5 years older than me, when I was still a well-behaved primary school student carrying a school bag. He had already started hanging out with people in society, fighting everywhere and extorting protection money. Because our mothers had a good relationship, he somewhat protected me. Once, I was robbed of my pocket money by a small hoodlum who was extorting protection money. Su Lingzhou picked up a stick and chased the other person for 2 li. In the end, he not only got my money back but also took all the money the hoodlum had extorted and bought me candies with it. Later, I was admitted to a key high school and met Jingqi. While he failed the college entrance examination and chose to drop out and go out to work, we never contacted each other again. After that, the rumors I occasionally heard about him were all bad, things like bullying girls and making them have abortions, getting addicted to gambling and always asking for money from home, getting into trouble outside and being arrested and sent to prison. The image of that childish but protective big brother in my memory became more and more blurred. Even when my mom mentioned him and said she wanted me to go on a blind date with him, my first reaction was also one of resistance and disgust. How could I pin my hope of escape on him? I moved my limbs, and the chain tied to the head of the bed immediately made a clear and eerie sound, echoing infinitely in the dim and enclosed basement. Before the sound of the chain died down, there was another steady sound of footsteps at the only exit of the basement. Jingqi had changed into a set of hung clothes. The soft beige sweater and gray casual trousers outlined his figure like a pile of jade. There was a faint smile on his lips, and the stray strands of hair on his forehead covered the sharpness of his eyes and eyebrows, making him look very gentle and harmless. But such a person wanted to kill me. He pulled over the only chair in the room and sat by my bedside. Then he placed the thing in his hand on me. It was something he had rummaged out of my bag, a divorce agreement. My signature was already on it. Jingqi looked at me, and his eyes seemed a bit sad. Still smiling, he said to me, you have a bad temper and are stubborn. Before seeing this divorce agreement, I always thought that you agreeing to divorce me was just out of anger. Why, wife, do you really want to part with me? As I listened, I just felt it was incredibly absurd and ridiculous. It was as if I was meeting the person in front of me for the first time. I stared at him and said word by word, you're going to kill me, and you're still asking me if I want to part with you. Jingqi's expression didn't change, and he could even explain. He said, you heard it too. This is a task I must complete, but after everything is done, I will get a chance to save someone. He looked at me steadily and promised, I won't let you die, even if the female lead in this world is Ninglan. The only person I love is you. You don't believe me. It wasn't that I didn't believe him, rather, I didn't believe a single word. Did he still think I was an ignorant girl in my late teens who was easily deceived? Jingqi let out a sigh. He said regretfully, I really love you, but if you insist on going against me, I'll have to use more cruel means to achieve my goal. 13. From that day on, Jingqi suddenly disappeared. There were footsteps on the steps again. A familiar man slowly walked in. It was Zhou Su. His eyes were blank, unable to focus, and his body movements were also a bit stiff. It was as if he was being controlled, but his movements of using the small knife in his hand to cut my skin inch by inch were extremely skillful. When I was screaming and struggling in pain and curled up in the corner in fear to avoid him, I suddenly understood Jingqi's intention. He used that thing called the system to detect the person I hated and feared the most deep in my heart. It was Zhou. So, he chose to let Zhou torture me, just like in my previous life. He pushed me to the point of complete mental breakdown. After that, even if I knew clearly that Jingqi was the mastermind, I would uncontrollably pray for his appearance to save me. Jingqi knew me too well. We were classmates for 3 years, in love for 7 years, and got married right after graduating from university. To be a bit crazy, he even counted every single hair on my head one by one. With a subtle movement of mine, he would know what I was thinking. He and Zhou played the good cop and the bad cop, taking turns to wear down my psychological defenses bit by bit. He didn't show up, but every time I woke up after being tortured, I could see an item related to him that appeared in the room, more or less. It forced me to recall the beautiful memories I had with him when I was in pain. One day, I opened my eyes again, but I didn't see that devil Zhou. Instead, there was a cute doll placed by the bedside. There was also a note with neat and sharp handwriting that read, "How about having another baby? Happy face." The bright red blood flowed down my arm and soaked the already mottled and stinking bedsheet. My long hair was in a mess. My eyes were scarlet and swollen. And I stared fixedly at those words and the smiling symbol at the end. The last string that had been in my mind suddenly snapped with a sound of collapse. Ah, bang. The door above was kicked open violently. Someone took 3 steps at a time and jumped down the steps. Sister. The scream stopped abruptly. I stared blankly at a man with a crew cut, wearing short boots and a black leather jacket, extremely tall, with handsome eyes and eyebrows but a fierce look. Appearing in this turbid and dark basement, he was also taken aback when he saw my current appearance. Then, he gritted his teeth, took off his coat, carefully wrapped me in it, and said angrily, "Don't be afraid, brother will take you away." Click, the bullet was chambered, behind Su Lingzhou. Jingqi expressionlessly raised his pistol and aimed it at the back of his head. Su Lingzhou paused for a moment but didn't stop. He picked me up horizontally, turned around, and confronted Jingqi directly, without any fear. He stared at Jingqi and said in a deep voice, "Do you think I came alone? I'll only say this once, get out of the way." Jingqi didn't move at all. He knew the matter had been exposed, but he wasn't worried at all. He sneered and said, "She's my legal wife. The intimacy between us as husband and wife is none of the police's business even if they come. No one can take her away from me." Su Lingzhou was shocked by his brazenness. He tightened his arms around me slightly and gritted his teeth, saying, "Intimacy, you've heard her like this. What the hell kind of intimacy is that?" Seeing that the situation was at a standstill and Jingqi refused to budge no matter what, Su Lingzhou forcefully suppressed his anger and coldly revealed a piece of news. It was like a thunderclap out of the blue, making my scattered consciousness condense into a line in an instant, as if pricked by a needle. "If you still consider her your wife, let us go. Her mother is dying. You should at least let them, mother and daughter, meet for the last time." 14. Speaking of my mom, she always cared a lot about what the neighbors thought of us, but actually, except for Aunt Sue downstairs, she didn't have any friends at all. She was talkative, loved to scold people, and her weathered face was always pulled down, full of bitterness and hatred. She liked to complain to everyone she met, so no one liked to stay with her. But according to the elders, she wasn't like this when she was young. When she was young, she loved to laugh, was lively and cheerful, and could make friends wherever she went. Unfortunately, she had bad judgment and found a very bad man. Since then, everything changed. My mom's leg was crippled by that man. The pair of agile and good legs that could originally walk dozens of li on foot became shaky even when going up a flight of stairs. She tried to fight back, but in the end, she was beaten even more severely, and later she didn't dare to fight back anymore. I was in junior high school at that time, in the rebellious stage, seeing her wiping tears in the room every day. In a fit of anger, I told her that she might as well divorce that man. As a result, she slapped me. What did she say? She said that no matter what, that was my father. I was angry and sad. I felt that they were one willing to hit and the other willing to be hit. And I was really out of my mind to care about her. But I never expected that my mother, such a futile, ignorant, and useless woman, would have the guts to kill someone. The person she killed was my father, who she often taught me was the head of our family. The police arrived quickly, and the surrounding alleys were crowded with people, but she wasn't taken to prison, because she had a mental illness. Even I was surprised by this matter. I watched as she took out stacks of medical diagnosis certificates, and on each piece of paper, there were official seals from provincial and municipal hospitals. The policemen looked at each other in dismay. My mother, on the other hand, had an unusually calm expression. Only I stared at the dates on those papers for a long, long time, stunned. Since then, the neighbors have avoided us, mother and daughter. They said that it must be because my mother was unfaithful and was caught by my father. So she became furious and had the intention to kill, otherwise, why had she endured being beaten for so many years? But this time she resisted so fiercely, they were afraid of her and looked down on her. They thought she was simply a time bomb and even filed various complaints with the neighborhood committee, forcing her to move out early. My mother turned a deaf ear to all this, but she rarely went out from then on. Everyone harbored malice and spurned her, only I knew, she did it to protect me. A month before this incident happened, I was molested by my biological father. When I was almost forced by him, my mother came home and accidentally caught him in the act. Then she flew into a rage and rushed up to fight with my father like a crazy lioness, but there was a huge disparity in their physical strength. In the end, that beast beat my mother up and fled in a mess, leaving us, mother and daughter, sitting on the ground and crying in each other's arms. I don't know what decision she made that night. I only knew that the next day, she knocked on Aunt Sue's door and asked Aunt Sue to take care of me for a while. She didn't hide the truth from Aunt Sue and told her what had happened. Aunt Sue was heartbroken and indignant and quickly agreed. Moreover, she called Su Lingzhou and asked him to pick me up and send me to and from school starting that day, and to follow me whenever I went out. But she didn't tell Su Lingzhou the reason for this. She said that only the three of us would know about this matter. No one else, not even her son, was allowed to know. Fortunately, Su Lingzhou listened to his mother very much and didn't ask too many questions. During that period, he even stopped participating in the gatherings of the small hoodlum gangs and really followed me honestly to protect me. After a month of peace, I stood in the middle of the crowd, dazed, watching the police come to the door and take my mother away. She was covered in blood at that time, but her expression was relaxed, even a little happy. She didn't lower her head but walked away openly with the police. Her eyes swept around the crowd. Finally, they landed on me. I saw her open her mouth slightly, and her voice gradually overlapped with the day when I fled home and was impatient to listen to her. She said, "No matter what, how could mother harm you?" 15. In the end, I didn't get to see her for the last time. And she didn't leave me a single word either, except for a property ownership certificate and a bank card with the savings she had accumulated for most of her life. These things were quietly and thinly placed on the coffee table in the living room. It was as if she was telling me, this was all she could leave me. Take care of myself in the days to come. I seemed to have my soul pulled out, and I was in a daze, not feeling any sadness, but the tears kept flowing, never stopping. Until I exhausted my strength, leaned against her wheelchair, and fainted. Aunt Sue and Su Lingzhou helped with my mother's funeral arrangements. To be precise, Su Lingzhou took care of everything, because if Aunt Sue hadn't held me back, I'm afraid I would have climbed into my mother's coffin long ago and returned to the earth with her. Warning, warning, there is only one day left for the task. Please complete the task as soon as possible. Host, or the task will be declared a failure. I suddenly turned my head. Jiangqi was standing not far behind me. He looked at me in silence, and in his hand, he was holding a silver gun. The sky was overcast, and the low, moist wind lifted the hem of his black coat. In his breast pocket, there was a white rose pinned, as if mourning someone. I stared at him blankly from a distance for a long time. I saw his face become paler and paler, his eyes filled with grief and guilt. His lips trembled, and he said softly to me, "I'm sorry." In the end, he still raised his arm and aimed the dark muzzle of the gun at me. Then, with a dull bang, Jiangqi fell to the ground, the gun slipping from his hand and rolling into the low grass. Then, the gun was picked up by another long and powerful hand with broad knuckles. Su Lingzhou held the gun in one hand and supported a shovel still stained with fresh soil with the other hand. He said speechlessly, "Are you filming a TV drama? Do you really think there's no one around?" While cursing and complaining, he called the police, with one leg still stepping on the shovel, and Jiangqi, who had been knocked unconscious, was at his feet. This scene was somehow a bit funny. I tugged at the corner of my mouth, turned around, and continued to burn paper money into the brazier. A gentle breeze blew. The sparks in the brazier suddenly shot up, forming a brilliant swirl of fire in the air, round and round, reluctant to part. Finally, the distant wind blew away, taking the ashes of the burned paper money with it. When this day passed and night and day rotated, I seemed to hear the system announce that Jiangqi's task had failed. The divorce proceedings between him and me went very smoothly. Because of Su Lingzhou's testimony and the conclusive evidence of the basement, Jiangqi was accused of attempted murder and abuse of his wife. At the same time, his company declared bankruptcy. All his assets under his name were frozen, and the matter of his illegal possession of a firearm was also brought to court. It was as if his protagonist Halo had really disappeared. This time, Ning Lan chose to ignore his plea for help. Instead of helping him, Zhou Su added insult to injury and provided the court with more materials about his economic crimes. Overnight, Ji Yingqi went from a highly sought-after favorite of heaven to a black-hearted capitalist that everyone wanted to condemn. I watched the court scene and saw Ji Yingqi's confused expression at first, and then his embarrassed appearance of crying and pleading when he heard the verdict. I suddenly thought that if there was no so-called protagonist halo, he was just such a despicable person, with multiple crimes combined. He was finally sentenced to death by shooting. Before that, he begged hard to see me. I wanted to hear his last words, so I went. When he saw me, his eyes lit up as if he had seen a life-saving straw. At this time, he had a beard, his eyes were dark with circles, and his expression was a bit crazy. He desperately coaxed me. There's still a chance. I still have a chance. Wife, help me. The system is willing to give me another chance. As long as you help me, listen to me. I've cleared many copy worlds. I've been an emperor and a god. As long as you help me, I can take you to any of the worlds I've cleared to enjoy a good life. Don't you love me? Please help me. Okay. I had always been wary of that mysterious system. I asked him cautiously, how do you want me to help you? Ji Yingqi suddenly leaned closer and said eagerly, my protagonist Halo has disappeared. You go find the new male lead in this world. As long as you can seduce him and bring him in front of me, I have a way to steal his luck. It was really unexpected. After Ji Yingqi stopped pretending completely, his face could be so thick-skinned, I sneered, got up, and left. Ji Yingqi climbed onto the window and tried to grab me, but was pressed back by the police. He called me in a desperate voice, wife, Xie you, didn't you say, you would always stay by my side? My footsteps paused, but it was only for a moment, and then I continued walking without looking back. Seeing this, Ji Yingqi was completely desperate. He slumped back and murmured, it's not fair. This is not fair. System, you lied to me. Didn't you say this was a simple task of winning someone over? Why did it turn out like this? How is it possible that someone in this world would be willing to die for another person? You lied to me. I want to file a complaint. Give me another chance. I want to start over. His desperate voice got farther and farther away from me. It was as if my painful and gloomy previous life was just a very distant dream. When I woke up from the dream, it was bright outside. He would never know. I had really committed suicide for love of him once. He didn't deserve it. 16. By the roadside, I looked at the luxury car in front of me, which was worth 8 figures. I looked at the car, and then at Su Lingzhou, who was hanging a long, muscular, and firm forearm out of the window, wearing black sunglasses and trying to look cool. I asked him in a complicated tone, did you rob a bank? Or did you get involved with the underworld? The corner of Su Lingzhou's mouth twitched. He took off his sunglasses and looked at me speechlessly. Was your mouth poisoned? You're so mean. Can't I have earned this myself? He opened the car door, stepped out with a long, superior leg, and then walked up to me and opened the door of the passenger seat in a deliberately gentlemanly manner. I got into the car, suspiciously fastened my seatbelt, and my face was full of disbelief. Su Lingzhou was very helpless. He had to explain to me, don't think that just because I didn't study, I haven't been working hard to do business all these years while being away from home. Okay, doing business. I was taken aback for a moment and blurted out without thinking, weren't you in prison? Screech. Su Lingzhou suddenly turned the steering wheel, and with a beautiful drift, he parked the car steadily by the roadside. He didn't say anything and took a deep breath. Then he turned his head and looked at me expressionlessly. Who told you such nonsense about me? Did you believe it? Well, I avoided his gaze guiltily and tried hard to recall the source of this rumor. In an instant, I suddenly understood everything. Su Lingzhou also more or less guessed it. He was angry and amused, but he couldn't bear to really teach me a lesson. So he poked my forehead with his finger and said in a tone of hating iron for not becoming steel, you actually believed what that old guy said. Don't you remember that he was rejected when he pursued my mother in his early years and then spread malicious rumors about our family everywhere? What were you thinking? I knew I had misunderstood him, and I didn't even dare to raise my head when he pointed it out. Thinking about it now, I couldn't believe it myself. What kind of person Aunt Su was. And Su Lingzhou had protected me when we were young. How could I have been so influenced that I distanced myself from them and even believed such rumors? My thoughts were in chaos when the phone suddenly rang. It was actually Zhou Su calling me. I frowned sharply. What did he want to do by calling me? His handsome face, which had jokingly said that he had fallen in love with someone else and wanted to divorce me, gradually became stiff and ugly. He started the car again. His tone calm and reassuring. Don't worry about it. I've been looking for people to deal with him recently. Now that the G guy is in jail, he won't be able to escape either. With your brother here, No one will dare to bully you in the future. These last words were like a small flame igniting the warmth in the quiet car. I was touched in my heart and looked up to thank him, but I accidentally noticed that his ears were a bit red. Su Lingzhou coughed to cover it up. Then, a bit awkwardly, he said, "My mother told me you agreed to go on a blind date with me. Ahem, well, come to my house for dinner tonight. My mother has cooked your favorite dishes." I turned my face away, looking at the scenery and the pedestrians walking by outside the car window. I suppressed the curve of my mouth. I imitated him and coughed fakely, then smiled and said, "Sure." Story 2. I lost the dare, and my boyfriend insisted I steal a bite from the poor student's meal. What are you waiting for? Go on. I can't wait to see him lose his cool. Am I back to 10 years ago? Approaching the poor student, I grabbed a piece of pickled radish and popped it into my mouth. He looked up, his eyes cold. Then, under everyone's gaze, I placed sweet and sour ribs and braised pork, all onto his plate. This is to make up for the radish I took. I hope you don't mind. I looked at the future tech mogul, my eyes smiling. Hello Susan at 17, I'm Mengyu, also 17. It just so happened that year you were insecure, and it just so happened that year I was radiant. 1. Mengyu, you lost the dare. Go ahead and grab a bite from his bowl. When I opened my eyes again, my childhood friend and boyfriend Fu Ran was cheekily urging me to snag some food from Susan's bowl. The wealthy friends around us cheered him on. Yeah, I can't wait to see the cool, aloof scholar embarrassed. What cool, aloof scholar? Just a poor nobody, right now. He might have grades to show off, but once he's out in society, he'll just be working for us. Haha, listening to them mock Susan, I scoffed. Birds of a feather flock together. As always, even the most innocent students have their own circles. I am the daughter of a government official. Fu Ran is the son of a wealthy businessman. We grew up together in the same luxurious neighborhood, childhood sweethearts. Thus, those we hung out with were all rich or noble, but I never liked this circle. However, I had no choice, as my parents restricted my social circle. Besides them, no one else played with me. 10 years ago, influenced by them, I took a piece of pickled radish from Susan's bowl. Then, I placed a chocolate I had with me next to his hand. That was the only interaction between him and me throughout our youth. Back then, he always walked with his head down, so low, as if he would sink into the dust at any moment. 2. 10 years later, I had completely forgotten about him. Until we met again at a sweet potato stall. By then, he had become a famous tech mogul, a powerful and influential figure, whereas I, after my father's imprisonment and my husband's abandonment, had become the city's biggest joke. 3. Why take such a long detour just to buy these lousy sweet potatoes? A woman with a new Hermes complained by the stall. Hey, these aren't lousy sweet potatoes. These are golden sweet potatoes baked by the daughter of a chief, Mr. Zhou. Is that really Miss Meng? She looks like she's in her 30s, guaranteed. After her father was brought down and Fu Ran left her, she ended up like this. That's too sad. Hearing them speak, the Hermes woman, stepping forward in her heels, approached me. Boss, give me 10 more sweet potatoes, make them tasty. I'm buying them for my housekeepers and drivers. I smiled ingratiatingly. Of course, miss, you are both beautiful and kind. Hearing me call her miss, she became even happier. Make it another 10. The man on the other side grabbed her. Why buy so much? You can't finish it all. She frowned disdainfully. How could I possibly eat this kind of low-class food? Low-class food. In the past, I always liked to buy street food to feed stray cats, but I never ate any myself. At that moment, the boomerang of youth hit me right between the eyes. I pursed my lips and sped up the flipping of the food. Let me help you. When Su-sun, dressed in a suit and leather shoes, appeared before me, I was completely stunned. He took me, a homeless person, to his private villa. There was no imprisonment, no coercion, nothing lecherous. He simply, like a friend, gave me a place to stay and helped me find a decent job. I was grateful to him and always thought about how to repay his kindness, but I didn't know how. On many nights, when I went out to get water, I would see Su-sun standing in front of the large floor-to-ceiling window, his pale fingers holding a lit cigarette. The moonlight spread coolly over the ground, surrounding him in a chill, consumed by solitude. Often, I wanted to hug him from behind, to comfort him, but I had no right to do so. Time passed. He truly expected nothing from me. He lacked nothing. Maybe he took me home simply because he felt pity for me, just like how I used to pick up stray cats and dogs from the streets, until he fell ill from overwork and was diagnosed with cancer. He still remembered my birthday and insisted on having me make a wish and blow out candles by his hospital bed. He said, a princess's birthday must be ceremonial. Indeed, later on, he always liked to call me princess. the disease had ravaged him. He was so thin that his eye sockets were hollow, barely human. Even his hand, placing candles, was pale and bony. He strained to smile at me. "Princess, happy birthday." His voice was faint. I had to lean close to his mouth to hear him clearly. Tears in my eyes, I watched him, but he kept smiling at me. "Quick, blow out the candles." His gaze, as if trying to etch my face into his memory forever. Smiling, he closed his eyes. The hand holding mine suddenly lost its strength. Hanging limply by the bed, I tasted the flavor of sadness, like trees and grass soaked in a heavy rain, damp and aching all over. Trembling, I blew out the candles and closed my eyes to make a wish. "Oh God. My wish for my 27th birthday is to go back to being 17. Unexpectedly, my birthday wish came true. When I opened my eyes again, my rowdy friends were pushing me around. "Miss Meng, what are you dazed about? Come on, I can't wait to see him explode." They laughed maliciously in Susun's direction. 17-year-old Susun was sitting in a corner eating. The lighting was dim, his silhouette lonely. Just like him at 27, whether in poverty or wealth, he always kept to himself. Seeing him young and healthy again, my eyes welled up with tears. I approached Susun boldly with my tray. As he dined on the free pickled vegetables provided by the cafeteria, he saw that I wanted to sit next to him. The already cramped space tightened further as he shifted to make room. My large tray held nothing but rice, pickled radish, pickled cabbage, and a bowl of broth with pickled vegetables that had no trace of oil. At that moment, I felt a piercing pain spread through my body. After he was diagnosed with cancer, he could have tried chemotherapy, but the doctor said his body was too weak, malnourished from his younger days, which had left him with chronic health issues. Ultimately, he didn't even survive the second round of chemotherapy. Looking at his gaunt face, I choked up. Could you let me have some?" I tried to control my emotions but couldn't complete my sentence. He must think I'm crazy. I composed myself and remained silent, surprising him. I picked up a piece of radish and put it in my mouth. It was salty and astringent, like chewing wax. "Susun, I'm sorry I'm late." When I looked up again, I only saw his cold expression. "Classmate, you can get pickled radish for free over there. Please don't make such boring jokes." At this point in the cafeteria, many students had stopped eating and turned to look at us, their voices loud with discussion, especially the table in front of us, where the voices were loudest. "Haha, Miss Meng is really bold, daring to provoke the aloof genius. It's only your high school classmates who call him a genius. His nickname in elementary and middle school was Disaster." "Oh, why do they call him Disaster? Isn't it because he caused the death of his biological parents?" And also, hearing the word disaster, he clenched his fists, veins bulging on his pale skin. Before the girl at the front table could finish, I stood up. "Didn't your parents teach you not to gossip about classmates behind their backs?" Still not satisfied, I added, "You may have parents, but it seems you lack home training." The girl I confronted didn't dare to provoke me further, only muttering quietly, "Is she on the wrong medication? Didn't she used to tease Susun?" This angered me even more, and I was about to give her a piece of my mind. Then I felt a cold touch on my hand. It was Susun holding me back. "Sit down and eat." His tone was calm, and his expression had returned to normal. After sitting down, under everyone's gaze, I moved all the sweet and sour ribs and braised pork from my bowl to his plate. I said with a pleading look, "This is to make up for eating your radish. I hope you don't mind." "Oh, and although we've been classmates for so long, it seems we've never really met." "Hello, 17-year-old Susun, I'm 17-year-old Mengyu." I smiled brightly and reached out my hand in friendship. My words poured out rapidly, and he just stared blankly as my mouth moved. "I'm full." After a pause, he dropped those words and left, leaving me stunned in place, and the chocolate I had almost squeezed to a pulp, still ungiven. After I arrived, I didn't eat anything at all. Later, feeling guilty, I gave him a piece of chocolate when I left. Fu Ran even mocked that this would be the best thing Susun would ever eat in his life, but 10 years later, while I was organizing Susun's study, I saw that piece of chocolate again on his desk. Susun had preserved it under a delicate glass dome filled with a special gas to prevent it from decaying. In that moment, countless thoughts flashed through my mind and a surge of emotions overwhelmed me. The chocolate in the palm of my hand revealed the secret he had kept hidden, but now, the vast differences in our social statuses and the great disparity made me suppress all those thoughts. After all, it's just a piece of chocolate. What could it really signify? I'm no longer the wealthy young lady I once was. What right do I have to stand by his side? Ha ha ha, Mengyu, that was rather harsh of you, giving your leftovers to the unlucky star. If anyone is insulting, it's you, the young mistress. Fu Ran plopped down next to me. I looked at him in surprise, so in their eyes My actions were an insult to Susun. Could it be that Susun thought the same? Ah, what a fool I am. All I thought about was wanting him to eat well, but the way I expressed it was so upsetting. Pei Pei sat on the other side, speaking slowly. But why did you help that disaster earlier? Those girls weren't wrong. Susun caused the death of his own parents and his younger sister. If you get close to him, sooner or later, he'll bring disaster upon you too. Pei Pei was also part of our circle. As the son of the principal, he had considerable influence at school. He had a violent temper and often bullied his classmates under the guise of playing games. After my family fell into decline, Fu Ran's attitude towards me changed overnight. He began to encourage me to curry favor with Pei Pei, all for a big contract. But I foolishly continued to harbor illusions about them. After all, we had been friends for many years. It wasn't until a joint family trip, when Fu Ran went to the room next door and Pei Pei entered my room, that I realized how rotten our circle had become. I gave Pei Pei a cold look and retorted irritably, so superstitious, then why keep doing heartless things without fearing being struck by lightning one day? Pei Pei's face turned pale instantly. Mengyu, what did you say? Say that again if you dare. Seeing our confrontation escalating, Fu Ran quickly tried to mediate. No, Master Pei, she's not in her right mind today. Don't take it to heart. I shook off his disgusting, filthy hand. You're no better, a rotten person. Both were stunned by my sharp insults. They seemed not to understand how I had suddenly changed today. Before they could react, I quickly returned to the classroom. I couldn't stand to stay in this thoroughly rotten circle a moment longer. When I got back to the classroom, the bell for class had already rung. I had no choice but to wait until after class to explain to Susun that I hadn't meant to put my leftovers in his bowl. This class was my least favorite, math. Although I wasn't in the mood to study, I forced myself to pay attention. In my previous life, it was because of neglecting subjects like this that I didn't get into a good university. After graduating from college, I married Fu Ran. I spent the first half of my life depending on my father, and the second half would depend on my husband. This is how people ruin themselves. So, after I broke away from that circle, due to my lack of specialized skills and impressive educational background, I found myself destitute, selling sweet potatoes. Given a second chance by fate, I was determined to seize it firmly. I listened intently, eyes wide open. For half a class, unfortunately, friends will leave you, husbands will betray you, but math won't. Because what you don't know in math, you just don't know. Listening to a math class was like trying to understand an arcane script to me. Sighing, I looked around. My gaze settled to the left. There sat a figure, both unfamiliar yet familiar, sitting upright attentively, eyes fixed on the blackboard, occasionally jotting down calculations on a piece of paper. He was lean, his face pale and gaunt, lacking vitality, with a persistent shade of light blue shadowing his brow, compared to his commanding presence 10 years later. He now appeared somewhat green and insecure. Mengyu, what are you staring at? Stand up and tell us. Caught staring at Susun too intently, I was called out by the old math teacher. Calmly standing up, I cheekily replied, I was looking at Susun. The class erupted in murmurs. Only Susun continued to quietly work on his problems, though his farriers visibly reddened. My math was poor. And this bold declaration only infuriated the teacher further. Come on, tell me. What about him are you looking at? Don't even think of leaving class until you explain, I said with a beaming smile. Because he's handsome. That remark set the whole class abuzz. As expected, I was asked to leave the classroom. However, given my father's status, it wasn't long before another teacher took me to the office to cool off in the air conditioning. After class, I couldn't wait to find Susun to explain about the meal. He kept his head down, working on problems, and didn't look at me, merely responding lightly, it's okay, I didn't think much of it. I breathed a sigh of relief. Glad you didn't misunderstand me. He was surprisingly easy to get along with. Why had I always thought he was so cold and difficult before? Seeing him still focused on his problems, I felt it improper to disturb him further. I placed my favorite chocolate next to his hand, bent down, and smiled at him. This is my favorite chocolate, for you. He glanced at it, then his gaze returned to his book. Thanks, but I don't eat it. It's really tasty, just try it. I peeled off the chocolate's foil wrapper and popped it into his mouth. My fingertips brushed his lips, sending a tingling sensation through my body. He looked at me in shock. I was flustered. Time seemed to stop, and he even forgot to chew, my face burning. But with no turning back, I bravely said, tastes good. Right, I didn't lie. I'll bring you some every day. With that, I ran off. When school was over, Fu Ran blocked my way home. I frowned at him. What's up? His arms crossed, his expression displeased. What's gotten into you today? Why are you so nice to that Jinx? I want to. Why do you care? He grabbed my shoulders. Today, because of Su-sun, you offended Pei. Su-sun will become his next target in his games. No way. Is he crazy? If he has a problem, he should come at me. Hearing Su-sun's name made me anxious. Fu Ran's eyes darkened as he gripped my chin, his words deliberate. Mengyu, don't tell me you've fallen for that trash. With a sneer, I said, if I don't love him, do you think I'd love someone like you? Mengyu. He was infuriated by my words, angrily pushing me against the wall and kissing me forcefully. Memories of the past flashed through my mind. I felt so disgusted that I almost threw up. I pushed him away with all my might and slapped him across the face. What are you doing, Fu Ran? He loomed over me, using his strength to pin me tightly between his arms. What am I doing? Didn't I tell you that the woman you saw that day was my sister? Weren't you just trying to provoke me by bringing up Su-sun? Wow, this scumbag. I've really had it with him. Just as I was about to retort, I caught a glimpse of someone out of the corner of my eye. Su-sun. He was holding a trash can. Walking towards the classroom, as he passed by, his gaze fell on Fu Ran and me. In just a second, he casually shifted his gaze away and continued on his way. My chest felt painfully tight. So, he must think again that I approached him just to irritate Fu Ran. I seized the moment to deliver a strong hit to Fu Ran's vulnerable spot. Fu Ran doubled over in pain. If you're sick, go see a doctor. Okay. I dropped that line and ran after Su-sun. Su-sun. It took me a while to catch up to him. I grabbed his sleeve and explained, I don't like Fu Ran. He's a scoundrel. He forced me just now. Su-sun kept walking. His long strides meant that his quick pace was like a jog to me. As he moved swiftly, he responded, Miss Meng, I'm not interested in your romantic affairs. You don't need to explain. He's not my boyfriend. Then, remembering that we hadn't officially broken up, I added, although we haven't broken up yet. We will soon. He stopped, looked at me seriously, and said, Mengyu, I'm neither interested nor have the time to be a plaything for you wealthy folks. Please don't talk to me anymore. Thank you. The last two words, he almost gritted out. After saying that, he walked away without looking back. His words felt like a cold shower from head to toe. I stood there for a while, feeling the sunset was particularly glaring. Why are there always so many misunderstandings between us, always missing each other? It's okay. It's okay, I comforted myself. Now, I am the daughter of a high-ranking official. What does rejection matter to me? I followed him again, but this time, it provoked his anger. Stop following me, get lost. 10 years later, it was just like 10 years ago. This was the first time in all our time together that he had been so harsh with me. Looking at his fierce demeanor, I felt helpless. After a while, I managed to muster a smile. Well then, goodbye, see you tomorrow. Turning away, my eyes moist, my heart felt choked. For several days, I left chocolates on his desk. Of course, he threw them all into the trash can. I stared at the chocolates in the trash for a long time, feeling lost, sad, powerless. These emotions surged like the sea, enveloping me. It's okay, misunderstandings. There's always a way to clear them up. Because Pei announced that Su-sun would be the target of the next game, the whole class started to refuse cooperation with Su-sun during his role as the math class representative. Whenever Su-sun went to collect homework, there were always those who deliberately dropped their assignments on the floor, forcing him to bend down and pick them up. So, I took it upon myself to help him collect them. The next time I placed the collected homework on his desk, he finally spoke up. Classmate Meng, I've resigned from the class representative position. Please, keep your distance from me from now on. The small flame of hope that had rekindled within me was abruptly extinguished. After a few seconds of silence, I couldn't help but ask again, why? He glanced up at me, his eyes cold and indifferent, his thin lips uttered chilling words. Because I hate you. I don't remember how I managed to return to my seat. That entire day, I was utterly distraught. I couldn't understand why, even after returning 10 years back. Was it still so difficult? Oh God, please tell me, what should I do next? Mengyu, come to my office, the class teacher called out during my moment of gloom. Which brightened my spirits. Our class teacher was a young woman, and my mother always tried to win her over by gifting her designer handbags to look after me. She was incorruptible. Having entered this profession with a dream of teaching, she always insisted that I return these bags to my home, but I knew, in this world, no one is incorruptible. You think she is upright and clean because the price you offer isn't something she desires. Absolute power leads to absolute corruption. This time, I didn't just obediently return the handbags. Instead, I closed the door to her office and gently pushed the Chanel bag she handed me back towards her. With a smile, I said, Teacher Chen, your bag looks really nice. I moved my chair closer to her and continued under her surprised gaze. Teacher Chen, I heard your husband and child are in Jincheng. It would be great if his job could be relocated to Hangzhou. At the mention of this, her eyes lit up. I lowered my voice so only the two of us could hear. My father has a comrade who is a key figure in Hangzhou's personnel department. After pondering for a moment, Teacher Chen took the bag back and said softly, this bag was recommended by your mother. It is indeed beautiful. Teacher Chen was very efficient. Before the class bell even rang, I found myself seated next to Su Sun, and Fu Ran, who was previously seated close to us, was now distanced miles away, fuming with anger. He was helpless. Under the class teacher's carrot and stick approach, Su Sun had no choice but to set aside our past grievances and reluctantly became my math tutor. Su Sun taught half-heartedly, but I studied with utmost seriousness, in this new chance at life. I truly did not want to be a useless person dependent on others anymore, yet, math was truly nauseating. For those who excelled, like Su Sun who always scored full marks, they were genuinely brilliant. For those who struggled, like me, sometimes even scoring in the single digits, once again, I was stumped by a giveaway question according to Su Sun. This type of question has been explained twice by old Wang, and I have gone over it 3 times with you. If you still don't get it, I suggest you give up on math. The way he looked at me was as if he was staring at an idiot. A surge of anger rushed to my head. Su Sun, I'm mad. Don't underestimate me. I will solve this problem today no matter what. Half an hour later, Su Sun came over. In a fit of anger, you just wrote a solution, he said, his eyes twinkling with a mischievous gleam. That was the first time I saw him smile. Time seemed to freeze. My mind went blank, and I just stared at him stupidly. Perhaps my gaze was too intense. He looked back at me. At that moment of eye contact, I guiltily turned away and said sheepishly, they say under pressure, people can do anything, but I guess that doesn't apply to math. No sooner had I finished speaking than Su Sun, with his head lowered, started laughing, his ears turning red. Is his sense of humor really that low? Mengyu, is this really your reason for breaking up with me? Fu Ran, fuming, threw all the books on my desk to the floor. His voice was loud, drawing the attention of everyone else in the library. I gave him a cold glance and said sharply, what, they let you out of the hospital before you recovered? Hearing this, he became even more incensed and started causing a scene, disturbing the other students who were trying to study. Su Sun intervened, Fu, this is a place for studying. If you're not going to study, please leave. Studying. You think just because you can read a few books, you can steal my girlfriend and beat me? My family has worked hard for generations. How could we lose to someone who's only studied hard for 10 years? You'll end up working for me in the future. There he goes again, this brainless man, starting another of his arrogant rants. I stood up and said deliberately, 10 years of hard study is precisely what will overcome your family's 3 generations of business. He sneered, oh, so you've decided to stick with this pauper? I scoffed, laughable. What I do is none of your business. What, you think the injury you got last time wasn't enough, and now you want to be completely cut off? I glared at him provocatively, speaking venomously, thinking about the pain he experienced last time. He instantly backed down. Mengyu, I'm going to tell your parents. You just wait. Ridiculous. With that, he walked away, tail between his legs. I picked up the books from the floor and got back to studying. When Su Sun tried to say something, I spoke first. Last time, you misunderstood me. I wasn't using you to get back at him. I have nothing to do with him anymore. Last time, it was him, desperate, who spoke those words. He kissed me. It was against my will. I even thought about calling the police on him for harassment. So, please believe me, I really didn't. I was anxious to clear up the misunderstanding, my words tumbling out incoherently, but before I could finish, he interrupted. I believe you. No need to explain. I believe you. Really, it felt as if the moon in my heart had risen again, and the stars shone brighter. Yeah, Su Sun seemed to hesitate for a moment, then asked, but why do you treat Fu Ran like that? Memories of being thrown out of my house in a previous life, stripped and humiliated in the snow by the man I loved from school uniform to wedding dress, surged through my mind. This love had nearly driven me to death back then. I held back my sadness and replied, because he made my life a living hell. Su Sun was somewhat surprised, but I couldn't and didn't want to let him know about these humiliating experiences. All I could do was laugh it off and change the subject. Also, because the person I truly like is you. At that, Su Sun really didn't press further. Instead he blushed, lowered his head, and went back to his work. Seeing that he didn't quite believe me, I suddenly had an impulse, took his hand, and confessed seriously, Susun, life is short, from now on, let me be with you, okay? He was stunned for a few seconds, then quickly withdrew his hand, his neck turning an embarrassingly bright red. Solve this problem first. It will make my life a bit less bitter. Reinvigorated, I diligently worked through the problems. Our relationship gradually eased. He taught me math every day, and I brought him lunch every day. Auntie, please make some extra sweet and sour ribs in the blue thermal box, and double the rice portion, twice as much as mine. Housekeeper Aunt Zhang nodded with a smile. All right. It seems young Master Fu has a sweet tooth. Boys his age do eat a lot. I'll pack some extra for him. It's not for Fu Ran. If he so much as ate a grain of my rice, I'd have to call the police. Ah, then for whom? Oh, don't worry miss, I won't tell anyone. I hugged her waist and cooed. Hee, Aunt Zhang, you're the best. Please double the bird's nest in the blue box too. He studies so hard, he needs to replenish. Ah. He's a big boy, he shouldn't be eating bird's nest with you. I prepared 8 treasure tea with fine ginseng for him. My words were sweeter than honey. Ah, Aunt Zhang, you understand so well, and your cooking is so delicious. I love you to death. Always clowning around. Go to school now. Under my careful feeding, Susan visibly became healthier. He no longer had to eat tasteless and greasy food in the cafeteria. Gradually, he gained weight. No longer so thin that a gust of wind could blow him over. Every day, I unwaveringly supervised him finishing a bar of chocolate with a glass of milk. His academic performance became even more frightening. Even before the college entrance examination, several prestigious universities had already extended their offers to him. With his tutoring, my math grades also started to improve. Now, he didn't just tutor me in math, but in other subjects as well, with his support and my own relentless efforts. My grades soared. In this life, I am determined to carve out a grand path for myself, because I know my father's downfall is inevitable. A crisis does not form overnight. It had been brewing since my childhood. All I can do is make myself strong enough that in 10 years, without relying on anyone, I can stand shoulder to shoulder with Susun. Even if the world changes, even if the constellations shift, years later, the world will also be ours. Susun, I want us to meet at the peak, and during the climb, I want to be the one by your side, forever, in this life, with my efforts. A seed of love has quietly sprouted in our hearts. We understand each other without needing to say a word. After resolving that misunderstanding, he started calling me princess again. I asked him, why do you always like to call me princess? After thinking it over seriously, he said, the day you offered me sweet and sour pork ribs as a friendly gesture, you were like a princess saving the world from suffering. Though high above, you are extremely kind. I laughed brightly but felt a bit puzzled inside. In my past life, I never made the first move towards him. Why did he still call me princess later on? But the answer doesn't matter anymore, because, in the long journey of life, I will be there with you. The day the autonomous admission exam at University A ended, I went to use the restroom, and just like that, Susun disappeared. A bad premonition welled up inside me. Sure enough, it was Fu Ran who had found Pei Pei, and they used the dirtiest and most despicable means to bully Susun during this period, because I was always by Susun's side. Pei Pei didn't have the opportunity to lay hands on him. This time, they dragged him into a small alley near the school. By the time I got there, a few people were holding Susun, while Fu Ran and Pei Pei took turns hitting him. Susun's face was contorted, his hands covering his abdomen, falling to the ground in pain. His breathing was rapid and unstable, sweat beading on his forehead, but he clenched his teeth, refusing to let any moans escape. Pei Pei spat out, damn, such a tough bone. Won't beg for mercy even close to death. Just as his fist was about to hit Susun again, I pulled out my phone to make a call. Hearing the sound, Pei Pei turned to look at me with ill intentions and walked towards me. What? Miss Meng is going to call the police. I clenched my fist, staring back at him fearlessly. He arrogantly continued, call the police. Doesn't Miss Meng know what my uncle does in the police department? As he was about to snatch my phone, I immediately spoke with a crying tone. Hello, Dad, I'm in the alley by the school. Please come save me. Hearing this, Pei Pei panicked a bit. Fu Ran, didn't you say her dad went to Beijing? I threatened. Even if he went to Beijing, try touching me and see what happens. Fu Ran, does your family's company no longer want to go public? Right then, the shrill sound of police sirens grew closer. The group panicked and scattered. I helped Susun up and took him home, all the way. Looking at his injuries, I felt both sad and guilty. If it weren't for me, those scoundrels wouldn't have targeted him. If it weren't for me, he wouldn't have been hurt today. Princess, Susun interrupted my ramblings and continuous apologies. this is the 100th time you've said sorry. Ah, sorry. Am I being too annoying? The 101st time. I never expected that Susun would be living in the medical staff quarters where I lived as a child. The once bustling medical staff quarters were now dilapidated and barely inhabited. Susun's home was old but clean. After knocking, Susun's grandmother, with her hair fully white, opened the door for us. Her vision was somewhat blurry, and her movements were no longer as nimble. Yet, Grandma knew he had been hurt and kept asking him if he had been fighting with someone. Susun was hesitant and couldn't give a clear answer. I took it upon myself to explain to Grandma, "Grandma, I'm Susun's classmate, Mingyu. You didn't know, but today I was bullied by some thugs, and Susun rescued me. However, he got hurt in the process. Grandma, he's my hero." After hearing this, Grandma first praised Susun extensively, then, she began to grumble about telling the teacher to seek justice for us. After much persuasion from me, she finally agreed to temporarily hold off on reporting the incident and went to make us some noodles instead. Once we got to Susun's bedroom, I began applying medicine to his wounds. Before we even finished, his expression suddenly twisted in pain. "Play on the computer for a bit. I need to use the restroom," he said, leaving me alone, utterly bored. At that moment, an old-fashioned computer that was turned on caught my attention with a particular folder. I clicked on it, only to find it required a password. The stars in the sky blink and wink. Seeing this phrase, my hands involuntarily typed a few characters on the keyboard. "There's a rag doll by the roadside." To my surprise, it unlocked. It was as if an autoplay button had been pressed. The nursery rhyme echoed in my mind, recited by a gentle female voice once again. Inside the folder were numerous diary entries from Susun's mother. December 25, 1996. Today, I found out I'm pregnant and was also promoted to attending physician. I've worked so hard for so many years. And finally, I have a good return. All this good fortune must have come from you, my baby. You truly are mommy's lucky star. Let's call you little lucky star. May 20th, 1997. Just at the unit, my senior colleague personally examined me and confidentially told me that it's a boy. Su Chang asked what name we should give to the child. Since his nickname is Lucky Star, perhaps his formal name should be Wuyo. Su Wuyo, Su Wuyo. May you live a life free of worries. Wuyo, your mom and dad will love you dearly. March 17, 2002. My Wuyo really loves candied haws, just like his father. So fond of sweets. I've been promoted to chief physician, but I still owe it to my senior colleague's recommendation. It turns out her husband is so capable, holding such a high position at such a young age, but she always has a drink before going to the operating table, a habit that no amount of persuasion can break. I'm really worried something might happen, but on a happier note, Su Chang's sketches are selling better and better, and everything at home is moving in a good direction. Our savings have also started to increase. Wuyo asks every day for a little brother or sister, which isn't feasible. I didn't realize when Susun had sat down beside me. I jumped, quickly wiping away my tears, but before I could explain or apologize, he spoke first. It turns out that he, like me, once lived in an incredibly happy family. His mother was a doctor and his father a painter. With favorable family conditions, he was the apple of their eye. That was until his mother passed away. Every child wishes for their parents to be in love, except me. Ever since the year my mother passed, my birthday wish every year has been for my dad to stop loving her. Unfortunately, heaven didn't heed my wishes. He continued to love her forever, loving her so much that he was willing to give up on me. And even life itself. Susun spoke these words with a calmness as if a light breeze was passing by, yet, my tears, once again, began to fall. Susun's mother had died from complications during a premature labor due to a medical accident, yet, his father blamed everything on Susun. Disaster, as everyone calls me. People usually detest their nicknames, feeling insulted by them. But I can't because this nickname was given by my father. He said I was a disaster. That I caused the death of my mother and sister. My original name was Su Wuyo, meaning carefree, but he changed it to Susun. He said, how could I live a life without worries after causing the death of my mother and sister? Susun's eyes were hollow as he stared out the window, his tone so neutral it was as if he was talking about someone else's life. Dad was right, the premature labor was my fault. I insisted on having gourds in the middle of the night, at that hour. Most shops were closed. My mother, pregnant with my sister, had to cross several streets before she found some. On her way back, she suffered from hypoglycemia. He suddenly stopped speaking, as if choked by a lump in his throat. After a while, he began again. Actually, there was still a chance when she was taken to the hospital. Unfortunately, the surgeon was her colleague who liked to drink before operating. At that moment, Time seemed to freeze, my ears buzzed, my mind went blank. And suddenly, I couldn't hear anything. I don't know how I managed to leave Susun's house. I wandered the streets, dazed, until the biting cold wind finally snapped me back to reality. In fact, Susun's mother's colleague was my own mother. 10 years later, the downfall of my father was because he had been covering up for her. In my memory, my mother was under a lot of stress, so she often drank. No one could persuade her otherwise. Gradually, her drinking became alcoholism. Operating while drunk inevitably led to several medical accidents, all of which were initially covered up by my father, until one incident got media attention and my father couldn't suppress it any longer, leading to a scandal. Patients who had been harmed because of this eventually came forward. In the end, my mother was dismissed from the hospital, but with the last of his influence, my father managed to protect her. My father, however, took on all the blame and was sentenced, it turns out. The mine laid by my parents was more dangerous and earlier than I had imagined. This mine not only destroyed the me 10 years from now but also left the current me utterly devastated. Suddenly, I seemed to understand. Why was I able to decipher that code? I remember that gentle and beautiful aunt who would sing nursery rhymes to comfort me when my mother was drinking. It was Susun's mother. Fate is indeed ironic. Only now do I understand what that piece of chocolate Susun had meant. 10 years later, it symbolized the overwhelming love he held back. Considering how capable he is, he must have known about our connection all along. That's why he always kept our relationship strictly platonic, and that's why he gave me just enough to get by, no more, no less. I stood by the riverbank, the winter wind chilling to the bone, the snow fell heavier, thick as goose feathers. I stretched out my hand, and a silver petal landed in my palm. Past and present life flashed before my eyes. Scene by scene, I stood there for a long time, so long that I lost all sensation. Susun, if heaven is willing to give us another chance, it means our fate is destined. Whether you are Susun or Su Wuyo, you are the love of my life. Mengyu, we are destined to embrace each other in this world filled with pain and love. If it's meant to be, I wish to walk through life with you. If it's a doomed fate, I will follow you to the underworld. Mengyu. I looked towards the voice. At the end of the long street, the twilight was dim. Susun stood there, his figure upright. My tears instantly overflowed. He walked towards me, step by step. I've been looking for you for a long time. What are you doing here alone? My voice was almost too hoarse to speak. How did you get here? You looked like you were in a trance when you left the house. The more I thought about it, the more wrong it seemed. So I came looking for you. Susun took off his scarf and wrapped it around my neck. I felt warmth spread through me. I looked at him, my vision blurring more and more. Susun, you are the one I would choose even if the whole world were against it, even if it means being cursed by thousands. I still decided to give it a try, even if I'm just a small page in your story, even if I can only be a small wave in the river of your life. I have to tell you. I took a deep breath, looked earnestly into his eyes, and slowly began. Susun, do you know why I was able to decipher that code? He looked back at me, silent. It's because that nursery rhyme was taught to me by your mother. Hearing the word mother, his eyes lit up. I continued, and my mother was the senior sister mentioned in your mother's diary. His pupils dilated, and his face turned pale. He stood there motionless for a long time, like a marionette. His reaction was as expected. Time slowly passed, until we were both covered in a thick layer of snow. I slowly said, let's go home. Goodbye, Susun. I turned around, crying inconsolably. Today is my 17th birthday. Susun is not by my side, facing the heavy snow. I make a wish, dear heaven. My wish for my 17th birthday is for Susun to be safe and healthy for the rest of his life. In the days that followed, Susun and I seemed to return to the way we were at the beginning. I couldn't bring myself to reach out to him anymore. Even though I still placed chocolates on his desk every day, I never saw him eat them, nor did I see him throw them away. However, the fact that he still chose to sit with me was a good outcome. I didn't hope for anything more. Soon, winter passed and spring arrived. The college entrance exams were approaching, and time became increasingly tight. This time, driven by a frenzied determination, my grades improved steadily, although I still struggled with math. Fortunately, I knew Susun's habits well. He would mark important questions with a red pen. I could sneak a look. His notebooks were meticulously organized, categorizing various methods and common errors, the handwriting neat and the arrangement clear, and since he never took his notebooks home, I easily obtained what could be called a top student's treasure trove. After overcoming my weaknesses, my ranking steadily closed the gap with Susun, the mallow flowers bloomed, and the long summer stretched ahead. Once again, I entered the examination hall for the college entrance exams. After the results were released, I was ranked first in the school. Susun's results couldn't be found. Top universities like Tsinghua and Peking tried to call him but couldn't get through. They came directly to the school to recruit him. Later, I moved some money from home and, under the guise of the nanny, Mrs. Zhang, I gave Susun 1 million yuan in the name of sponsoring the top scholar. In the future, he would need this money as startup capital. In this life, I didn't want him to exhaust himself again, slowly saving up this money through sheer physical toll. As a result, I was whipped by my father and left covered in scars, because I told him that I had gambled away the million yuan. For several days, I was beaten so badly that I couldn't get out of bed. But ultimately, as his daughter, after he sternly warned me never to gamble again, he let me be. On the day of our graduation dinner, I drank several bottles of alcohol. Alcohol emboldens the cowardly. Once again, I found myself outside Susun's apartment. He came downstairs and upon seeing me, his eyes shimmered with emotion, but he hesitated to speak. The sky was overcast, ripped apart by a dazzling streak of light. Looking at his face, so familiar, I felt like crying. Susun, I know you can't accept me, but that's okay. Can you let me finish what I have to say? Seeing my tearful eyes, he could only nod. Susun, in the days to come, you must take good care of your health. You can't keep eating pickles and fermented tofu every day. You need better nutrition. Also, no matter how busy you are with your studies and career, you must get enough sleep. Of course, there's one more very important thing. After you graduate from college, you must get a thorough annual checkup. Especially your liver. I was getting more urgent and emotional as I spoke, but before I could finish, he interrupted me. Mengyu, let's go to hell together. His voice was cool and detached, and I was taken aback for a moment. I stared wide-eyed, the sudden warmth on my lips rendering me momentarily speechless. When I came to my senses, I hugged him back tightly. Large raindrops began to fall. Soon, the rain was like a curtain, pouring down heavily. Princess, it's raining. His voice was right by my ear as I looked out over the city shrouded in mist, feeling as if I were dreaming. The rain kept getting heavier, yet I couldn't bring myself to let go. It had taken all my strength and all the luck of my lifetime to embrace you so completely. 30, a decade later, my parents ended up with the same fate. During these 10 years, no matter how much I tried to persuade, I couldn't change the fact that my mother was an alcoholic. Of course, my father's increasingly wayward path didn't change either. That was to be expected. I had seen his confession after he was caught. In the video, I didn't see any heartfelt remorse. All I saw was him accepting his fate with composure. So no matter how many times I might relive this life, I can't change that inevitable conclusion. Susun still ended up with cancer, but fortunately, it was discovered early this time, thanks to my meticulous care over the past decade. And his rigorous exercise routine under my watch, along with his early nights and early mornings, his body managed to withstand the surgery to remove part of his liver. Because he was in good physical health, he recovered quickly. However, the doctors said there was a possibility of recurrence, so he needed to live a regular life and keep his spirits up. I smiled confidently. With me around, I won't give those cancer cells any chance. 31, Susun. The hardships of fate have pushed you to the edge of a cliff, so let me sit with you at this cliff's edge, admire the flowing mist and fog, and from now on, we'll be inseparable in life and death. End of text. Susun side story. 1. Actually, calling Mengyu a princess started with our first meeting. Back then, my grandmother always tried to sneak into the rich neighborhood to scavenge through trash because even the garbage bins of the wealthy were full of treasures. One day, she was caught by security. She was pushed to the ground and couldn't get up. After receiving the call, I ran frantically to the rich area until I found my grandmother, and only then did my heart slightly calm down. While helping my grandmother home, I passed by Mengyu's house. At that time, she was hosting a birthday party. Her home was splendid, like a castle from a fairy tale. I saw her parents, relatives, and many classmates all around her. She stood in the center, smiling brightly and radiantly. And there I was outside, peering in, like a rat in the gutter, trying to glimpse the world's most beautiful princess. Unexpectedly, we met again at school later. Her boyfriend forced her to pick food from my plate, but all I had in my bowl was the free pickled vegetables from the cafeteria. At that moment, my inferiority was fully exposed. I knew she despised my food because it wasn't what her kind would eat. Luckily, she didn't eat it because how could a princess eat such things? Perhaps it was a whim. But before leaving, she gave me a piece of chocolate, too. Yet, her casual gesture stirred ripples in my life. When we met again, the once high and mighty princess was selling sweet potatoes, covered in dirt. She silently endured the mockery from her former friends. Seeing her like this choked my heart, By then, I knew about her parents. I also knew the unscrupulous doctor who operated on my mother and sister was her mother. But later, I thought it through. My father had directed all his resentment towards me. I had experienced that suffocating feeling, so why should I let history repeat itself on her? I took her home and treated her like a friend, suppressing my overwhelming love for her because I was afraid of scaring my little princess. Through our time together, I felt the warmth of life, successful in my career. The world is grand and brilliant, but it is also dark and bloody. No matter what the world is like, I will forever be an outsider. Like duckweed, like a lost soul, until the princess appeared again, giving me a sense of grounding. She brought me warmth and sunlight, giving me a reason to live in this world. She is my journey home. I had hoped to let everyone know I love you when the clouds and fog cleared, but heaven didn't allow me to wait for that day. If I could live another life, my princess, could you come to my side a bit sooner?